Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment, the ACE. This is our sci-fi movie podcast. I am Peter, and my co-host on this trip through space, as the video clearly shows now, is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
And we are working our way through the Terminator franchise. We did Terminator, we did Terminator 2, we did Terminator 3. That was a hell of a ride, that one. And we're here for Terminator Salvation today, and we're going to talk about it. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning in the middle before we go into spoilers. And here we are. So, Terminator Salvation is interesting, I think. And I mean, you were this with Terminator 3, and I was close but not quite. I think for both of us, we have not seen this since it came out in theaters. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. So, I was really curious because after 3, I was like, well, it can't be worse than 3. Like, it can't be. It has to be better. I don't remember it being that bad.
Yeah. 3 was pretty terrible.
Now, don't get me wrong. I have a list of problems. I have a declaration of problems with Terminator Salvation, but we'll find out if it's actually better or worse than 3. Now, it's definitely better than Genesis because Genesis is absolute Batman v Superman level of garbage. So we'll get to that in a few weeks' time. I'm so excited.
It's the next one.
I'm
the next
so
Terminator.
excited.
Did you redo a review for Genesis?
I think there was. I think me and Matt talked about it on what was at the time the 121 podcast, which had like news and stuff. So it wasn't quite like the same as.
Okay.
Was,
so it's not like a full dedicated review.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, Alex was on that, and Alex passed away in 2015. So I mean, it was a while ago. So, yeah. So like it's been a while. And again, I've not seen that since the theaters either. So, revisiting that is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So Terminator Salvation, the premise of this, of course, the one film in the franchise which is entirely set in the future. It's the future war. Christian Bale plays John Connor. We have Sam Willerton as this mysterious character, Marcus, who's new. Basically, we meet young Kyle Reese, played by Anton Yelchin. I actually forgot it was him that was in this, because when the name came up at the start, I was like, oh, he's in this? I didn't remember that.
No, I knew who he was in it because it came out the same year as the Star Trek reboot.
Of course.
And I was like, who is playing Chekhov? Anton what? And then, oh, he was in Terminator. Okay.
Yeah, what a weird year 2009 was. 2009 had a new Terminator, a new Star Trek, it had Avatar, Moon, District 9. What, not that
Pretty
all
big
those
year for sci-fi.
Yeah, not that every single example there was good, although most of them were. It's an insane year for sci-fi. How do I describe the plot? I guess there's like the Resistance has a way they think they can stop Skynet, and Marcus is with a young Kyle Reese, and then obviously John Connor and Marcus cross paths eventually, and we have things happen. This is what it is. That'll do for a synopsis until we get to spoilers. Tara, how did you feel watching Terminator Salvation?
I'm a little bit conflicted about it, but I think overall I am more on the positive side, probably more positive than you are.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear why you're wrong later in the show. But no, like I don't hate it. Like, it's better than Terminator 3. I will say it. I will open with that. It is better than Terminator 3. There are things that are in it that are fine. There's things that are in it that are good ideas. There's executions that I don't think are quite right. There's focus that I think is weird. There's like aesthetic problems that I have. There's a lot of things that add up to ultimately feeling kind of like lukewarm on it. But it's not the worst thing ever, and it's not like a complete disaster. So
I think that's where I am too. I also have issues with it, like quite a few issues actually. But I think overall it was a kind of a daring choice for them to do. I understand why they did it. It seems very much like we need a gritty reboot after whatever that comedy mess was the last time we made a Terminator film. So let's make it like the Nolan movies and just get Batman in it.
And this literally get Batman. Yes. I think
make the Hurt Locker with John Connor.
I think the first problem is that they've got Batman, but the director they have is not Christopher Nolan. The director they have is McG. And don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I mean, Christian Bale is a great actor. And I don't think McGee is a terrible director. I think his action is actually pretty good, but he is so miscast.
He is. No, he does not work in this movie, despite the fact that on paper, I remember when he was cast as John Connor, I remember thinking, that's perfect. That's perfect. But it's not. And I think there's a couple of problems with it. I think it is the direction. I don't think he's been directed properly, for a start.
Yeah, but I couldn't help but think the whole time I was watching it that I wish that the roles were reversed. Because I think Sam Worthington would have made a pretty decent John Connor.
I don't know if I agree with that. But I do think there's a problem in the movie where the movie is far more interested in being about Marcus than it is being about John Connor. And I think that leads to a lot of problems, especially towards the end of the film. So that's something worth talking about. But not until spoilers, because I have to kind of get into the plot nitty-gritty to really kind of talk about that. But the thing is that he's always yelling. He's always doing things like that. He's always, and not just on set. He's always yelling. I was
going to bring it up.
Joe, what makes me sad is that I just cracked a joke about the on-set tape that leaked of him yelling at a lighting person. And the sad fact is, this is 10 years old. There's probably people watching this review who won't get that joke because 10 years ago means that it was too long ago for them to have been old enough to get that joke.
Well, look it up, kids.
Yeah, look it up, kiddies.
It's worth it.
Your
Everyone loves a good meltdown.
Your uncle and auntie are here to tell you all about Terminator Salvation in the year of our Lord 2009. So Christian Bale is kind of oddly miscast, but I don't know if it's because he's miscast in general or because he's miscast with this director and what the actual focus of the script is. Because he doesn't really feel like the main character of this film, which isn't necessarily a problem, except all the interesting ideas revolve around them and it just doesn't focus on them, which is frustrating.
Yeah, my main issue is not so much that is the direction of him. I think it's more that he is playing a soldier. And it's a war movie, and he's just a soldier, and he's not this hero that we've been hearing about for 3 films.
There's a lot of things that don't line up with the other movies that I want to get into, and
people say that they respect him, but you don't really see it.
Yeah,
he just seems like one of the other grunts.
And I know whenever I bring up differences between what we know of the future from the first 2 films and what this movie does, I know there's a technical explanation for it. The explanation is that the future that we saw in the first 2 movies isn't the same future because the delayed Judgment Day. And the first thing I really want to talk about here is I totally do not remember that this totally keeps Terminator 3 in continuity. Kate's in here. Kate's there. I mean, it's not the same actress. It's this Bryce Dallas Howard, which many might argue is an upgrade. I am not going to.
Let me tell you, the fact that they recast a character from a movie, a character that I didn't care about in a movie that I hated, I don't care. They're both as equally as uninteresting.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. She has nothing to do in this movie. She is just there to be the redhead who happens to be John Connor's wife or girlfriend or whatever. She's just there. But they also bring up the Terminator fuel cells, which were introduced in Terminator 3. They say that Judgment Day happened in 2003. All the things, they actually do kind of treat it as no, that's when Judgment Day happened. It was 2003. We're going to follow Terminator 3, even though it doesn't matter.
It's all canon,
for the most part, but they're going to treat it like it is. So here's some things I want to bring up about this future. Right, again, this is all spoiler-free stuff. Why does it look so boring and shit?
It is so much daylight.
It's so much daylight, right? In fact, there's a line in this movie when Kyle Reese is explaining to Marcus about traveling, and he says, "Oh, shouldn't we go now because it's nighttime? Wouldn't we be easily sneak around?" And he says, "No. They've got infrared. It's better to sneak around during the day. You get a better chance." I want to take you back to The Terminator, the 1984 hit film directed by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn, where Kyle Reese in that very film, the very same character this little shit's supposed to be, told Sarah Connor that it was too dangerous to go around during the day because it was too easy to see them and it was safer to go at night. That was a line of dialogue in the first movie. In this movie, it outright says the opposite.
I know. And still, that Terminator is a more advanced Terminators than the ones that we see for the majority of the films.
Yeah,
so
it's T-600s we see in this movie.
Which look awesome. I really like the design of the
other Terminators. They're fine. I'm going to talk about the positives of the designs in a minute. like, I don't like how it looks. I don't understand, why do the Resistance have an entire fleet of helicopters and planes? Did you ever get the feeling in Terminator 1 and 2, whenever we saw this future, that
they're just the military.
Yeah, they have the whole military. They have the whole Air Force. They have submarines.
Yeah. This is the Hurt Locker, and Transformers had a baby.
I hate this. I hate this. Right, first of all, where are the laser weapons? In Terminator 1 and 2 in the future, they're all firing laser weapons. It looks colourful. So it's nighttime, but these laser weapons light up the sky, and it looks great. It's got this great visual to it.
And we know it's canon. They've kept all the same, like, shitty characters from the third film.
But no. This movie is the greyest, bleakest, shittiest looking thing, and it's full of helicopters. At the start of the movie, John Connor, after the opening scene, which we'll talk about in spoilers, calls in like helicopters, and like 3 helicopters come in and pick him up. And I'm like, this does not feel like they're sneaking around at all. This does not feel anything like those future scenes.
It looks like they shot it in like Mosul or something. Like it looks like you're just watching a movie about the war in the Middle East.
I hate how this movie looks. I hate the choices to do this. I think
it's kind of brave that they wanted to do it, and like I could see why they wanted to go in that direction after the borderline Schumacher film. Yeah, but the third one was.
You can still do what Terminator 1 and 2 did with the future and keep it serious.
Yeah, but these kind of movies were popular right then. Like, it's also very much like a zombie film. It's just like the post-apocalypse. You also can't trust the humans that you're running into. It's very much like this is a year before The Walking Dead, which is like
still going. Zombie. It's still going. It's on season 10.
Yeah, right. But this is like peak zombie films in America and like genre, and that's what this was just. But here's the whole time I was watching it, I was just reminded of other movies that were popular.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. You don't take inspiration from the fads that are going on around you. You take inspiration from the previous films in your goddamn franchise. And I'm not saying don't put your own spin on it. I'm not saying don't add to it. I'm not saying don't do these things. But the look and feel of this war is so far removed from every glimpse we ever got. Because see, whenever before this came out, and I still believe this to a point, although this has kind of ruined it for most people, this idea of having a future war movie, is I still think, and I did before this, that you can have a good Terminator future war movie, even a future trilogy, sure, whatever, right? Because there's a deleted scene from Terminator 2. The script of it is on the extras. At least it was in the old Ultimate DVD. I don't know if it's on like the newer stuff, but there was a great deleted scene at the start. The future war stuff had an extra bit at the start of the movie where it showed that the old John Connor going into the Skynet lab, and maybe the reason why they chose not to shoot it is just because it was like, oh, we have to build a whole lab, and maybe it's just not worth the money of doing it, right? But
sure.
You know, we basically see them end the war, and I think there might have even been a scene with Kyle Reese where he like asks for a volunteer, and Kyle volunteers to go back. They get into the time machine vault or whatever it is, and Kyle volunteers, and they send Kyle back, and someone else says, "That's it, it's over. We've won the war, and we've sent Kyle back." And Connor says, "No, there's one more thing we have to do." And the final, and I always remember the part that I really remember vividly in this script segment of this deleted scene is
that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, he walks into like a storage, like a cold storage room, and it's just rows and rows of like naked people, right? And he stops on the 101 row, and it's like the Arnold Terminator model, and he just looks at him. And I think this was the moment that was supposed to like fade to young John Connor, and for the first time in Terminator 2. It was supposed to fade to the young John Connor from this moment, and it was like the idea of like, no, this is like him, this is the hint that he's about to send this one back. Like this is the big like cavalry's coming kind of thing. Maybe there's one more thing we have to do. Maybe I'm mixing that up with like something from Genesis or something like that. But this bit at the end, especially, was a deleted scene that they never shot. It was just a scene that they had in the script for Terminator 2. And I always thought that that's how you end your future movie or your future trilogy, right? The idea being that you don't have to like change the ending of T2. What you do is you set it essentially before T2, in the sense that it's a future where John Connor's grown up knowing that he's going to be John Connor, in the sense that his mother has had the first Terminator and Kyle Reese, right? Because that always had to happen, because that's how he's born. But Terminator 2 has not happened yet. And we get the future war play out, we get them winning the war, and then it ends with him looking at the Arnold Terminator and like, okay, we're sending this one back, and that is the end of your story. And that's the end of your... And by the way, what do you call your future war movie? You call it Terminators, alright? That's what you call it. I've thought a lot about this.
Terminator 4?
No, 3. 3 didn't happen. 3, cancel
Well,
3.
not going to this film.
Well, like, according to my canon, it didn't happen. All right, this is my script.
I didn't realize you were going through a fan fiction.
I'm just saying, like, the idea, the appeal of wanting that future war was the glimpses we got before. It was the nighttime scenes. It was the laser beams. It was the hiding and sneaking around. The idea that we have to run around like rats because anything else is too dangerous. That it's
Plus,
so.
all the scenes that we had from the future
Yeah.
were all at night.
Every single one of them.
That's when we fight Terminators, at night.
And this is the thing, yeah. Those red eyes that this movie, because this movie does the the red eyes going out like 10 times. The Terminator's eyes like dimming. It does it like 10 times, and like 9 of them are during the day. Do you know what makes that look better? At night, because light sticks out at night.
Yeah.
The aesthetic is a problem I have with it. I don't like the aesthetic.
It's just, it clashes too much with the franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand why they wanted to do it, but it's always going to be this odd film in the whole series because of the tone.
The visual effects hold up a lot better than 3 did.
Oh yeah.
But I will say
I commend the visual effects on this quite a bit.
There is one scene though. It's when Sam Worthington walks out in front of the Hollywood sign. That looked like a sci-fi movie, like a sci-fi channel movie. That one scene looked really green screen to me and really fake. When he was looking around at the city, that one scene really stuck out to me. He's looking rough, but I mean, you may disagree.
I mean, I didn't even notice. Like the special effects really worked for me quite a bit, especially in the last like 20 minutes of the film, which of course we won't get into spoilers, but those of you who have already seen the movie know what I'm talking about.
I agree with that for the most part. I think the first shot with what you're talking about was a little off.
No way. It is astounding.
No. I looked at the scene again. There's something I can't say. I can't say. Look, the effects are mostly really good. It wasn't giving me that fake feeling for the most of the film. It was just that one scene and then that one shot that we'll talk about in spoilers. So
yeah, I like the design of all the machines that we get to see.
No, like,
I don't like the fact that we don't have lasers.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I know it's 2018, and this movie was made, in 2009 or came out in 2009.
Well, that's right. Yeah, it's set in 2018. You're right. I forgot about that.
So they're probably like, well, we probably wouldn't have lasers at this time, but no, lasers are already part of the canon. Just use them.
Just use them. Yeah,
we forgive you.
It's fine.
We'll assume Skynet made them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they stole some Skynet tech. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, I like the T600s. Because there's a few moments in this where it's like there's a T600 stalking one of them or whatever, right? And what do I like about the Terminator? One of the big first things I love about it is I love the cyberpunk horror of the Terminator. And there's a few moments in this where it's like at night time and the T600 is like patrolling and looking around and like. I'm like, okay, that was kind of a creepy little moment. That's what I want from this movie. I want this idea of this dangerous, machine-filled world where everything's dangerous and the people can't do anything. And I don't feel it, because in this movie, there's like several scenes of them just walking down long roads and there's like no one around for miles. And it's like, that doesn't feel that dangerous. Doesn't feel that dangerous at all. It feels like a nice little jaunt in the post-apocalypse. So little jaunt down the road. This might sound a bit nitpicky, but it does really bug me, right? So... There's several points, especially towards the end of the film, where we're going into like Skynet's building, right? Because obviously Kyle, ends up as a prisoner, right? And that's not really a spoiler because that's something that he mentioned in the first movie. That's like part of the story. Although I don't think he's really there long enough to really jive with that story that he told in the first movie. I feel like they kind of took some liberty with that story that he told. But
there is a detail that really bugs me about it, though.
So here's a thing that really bugs me about this. Is why, and this is not the only time in the film this happens where it didn't make sense to me, but this is the big example I'm going to give for you. Is okay, so this like lab / prison. I mean, it's Skynet, so they basically just have everything like in one big building that's right back to back, whatever, right? Why does this place have doors with like hand scanners and keypads as if like a human being would ever be going through them? Because we see like people like hack into them, and I'm like, it's only meant to be Terminators going in and out of this place. Like, why does this place even have like traditional? Like, surely there should be whole parts of this building that don't even have that doesn't even have space because it's just meant to be a big machine. Like, why is there a keypad? Like, surely
Terminator's going beep 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 beep. One, two, three, four, five.
Yeah, well, when the Terminator's just like either because it says they can communicate, so surely it's just wireless, and if not, then just jack in with like a USB like finger. So I don't know,
Don't
like.
they just call each other and go? "Ah."
Well, Terminator 3's canon, so yeah, maybe they do. Like, I just, it's so weird. Like, I don't feel like the designers, like the set designers, or I'm not going to necessarily put the blame on them. This might be the director just telling them what he does and doesn't want, or because it's in the script,
Well,
so they have to do it.
is it not a building that was built by humans and then taken over by androids or
Um,
cyborgs,
maybe,
robots?
but but in that case, then, but why does the keypad even still work then? Like, why? Because surely Skynet would take control of the system and just be like, nah, that door's never opening because we don't need it to be open.
Well, I mean, they are working on a different type of Terminator, and the Terminator that we've seen in the first film.
I feel like, for me, one of the most interesting things about Skynet, and it's one of my big problems, and spoilers is going to be related to this, what I'm about to say, is that Skynet is not an entity. It's not an entity with like a look or a voice or a body or a shape or anything. It is purely just the knowledge and the system, right? And one of my things I love about cyberpunk horror is the idea that it doesn't need like body. Sure, it's got like drones, it's got Terminators out there doing things, it's got these flying machines, sure, but it doesn't need hallways, it doesn't need to have a voice or do anything like that. It just, like, it can literally just be a block, but that block is the most dangerous block in the world because it's connected to everything and it can control everything, you know?
Sure. I mean, that was kind of one of the cool parts about the third film is that once it becomes active, it only takes a second before
but what
it
I mean
immediately turns on humanity because it goes through like its own life cycle in a second.
Yeah, but what I mean is though is it doesn't need like it's like the building that houses it should not be like any building that humans would ever build because it doesn't need to have hallways, it doesn't need to have windows, it doesn't need to have anything. It can just be a mass of cables and like you know, circuit boards and shit. Like, it can just be this grungy cyberpunk thing. It doesn't need to have anything that would be recognizable as a human entrance or like. And don't get me wrong, this is supposed to also be a prison, so there's definitely parts that should have human areas because they're going to have prisoners, right? That makes sense. But there's certain parts of it where I'm like, why does this even exist? Why does this human access part exist?
That reminds me of the clip I sent you that was Arnold being interviewed on Howard Stern and how when he was thinking about the Terminator before he even agreed to play the Terminator, he was talking to Howard like to James Cameron like whoever you get to play the Terminator, make sure they can reload a weapon or take it apart and put it back together without even looking at it. Because
you don't need to.
A robot wouldn't need to look at it to reload because it's a robot. Like, it should always just be looking where it needs to shoot.
And if you go with what he just said, if you go back and watch that first Terminator again, watch that scene in the nightclub. Like, he is aiming and reloading without ever looking down at the gun, ever once. It is...
You know what?
You put it in practice.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is a god among us. I love him so much.
Affirmative. No, like, and it's just like I feel like there's just a lack of creativity in thinking about how Skynet would function. There's a lot of easy paths taken on the design stuff in terms of Skynet and the buildings itself. The Terminator, the T-600s look good, the flying machines look good. There is one thing they do, sort of about a third of the way through the movie, there's like one extra new design that I don't like that much because it's a bit too transformery.
It's very transformery.
Yeah.
But I like the things that come out of them.
Sure.
The motorcycles, they're pretty cool.
Yeah,
motorcycle Terminators.
There's like Terminator bikes, yeah, they're okay. I have no real problems with those. So yeah, there's some design aesthetics that kind of really bug me. Even though some of this, because the stuff that works is the stuff that's a lot more like the old films. Like the T-600 obviously is a more plonky design, but intentionally, but it's definitely based on what the Terminator was. Like, it's still a lesser version of that Terminator, so it still looks good.
It looks like a prototype to the T-800. It looks good.
Yeah, it's the tank. It's the tank before they sleek it down and make it a bit more mobile and a bit more. You know, it's got a big minigun that's just attached to its arm, so it feels a bit slower. It feels a bit more cumbersome, and you know, but still kind of scary. And that's cool. That works. So I realize I went on a rant about keypads and shit. Do you want another rant, or do you want to like bring up something else first?
I mean, if you're feeling it, let it out.
Okay, let's talk about the music. because
Yeah. I'm gonna start this off
sure,
because I know where you're gonna go. It's Danny Elfman.
I forgot about that. It is Danny Elfman. See, when I was watching the credits at the start, I nearly had a shit. I nearly shat my pants.
But you know what? It doesn't sound like Danny Elfman. It doesn't sound like
That's
anything I
true.
recognize him for, mostly because I don't even notice it. I don't even hear it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't sound good either. Because I'll say this: Terminator 3's music, while I didn't like it, at least I started to notice some of the themes in that movie. In this, I noticed nothing.
I think we panned it though,
Oh, we did.
especially you.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I didn't like it. I hated it, but at least it had recognizable themes that started to like
I mean,
reoccur.
this had the da 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 in the beginning.
All right, so here's where I'm going to start. This movie has a lot of references to Terminator 1 and 2, right? And they do feel quite genuine. They don't feel too overdone for me. They feel like nice little subtle things.
They don't feel like fan service. They feel like they're part of the plot.
For the most part, yeah, for the most part. And we'll go through some of them in spoilers. But the one that I'm going to mention here, because this is not a spoiler at all, is the opening title sequence. They pay homage to the original Terminator, because the original Terminator, if you remember, it was all the letters of the title sort of going back and forth as the do 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 do, right, and the credits would come up and sort of a computer like sort of typing text kind of thing over the top of it, and that was really cool, right? That's really iconic. And this kind of plays homage to that by having the letters of the title kind of like spinning, right? So it's not the exact same thing, but it's definitely in the style. It's like, here's the modern version of what that Terminator opening title sequence is. I have two problems with this. One is just kind of weird, and I don't know why, and then the other one's like a big problem. The weird one is that, so it comes up saying, you know, so-and-so presents, blah, 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 you know, Christian Bale, and it comes up saying the title while it's still happening. And I was thinking to myself, that's weird. The whole point of this type of title sequence is that at the end of the title sequence, all the letters finally come together, and it goes back the way, you know, like the original Terminator, like Stranger Things even does, right? That's the whole idea. But the weird thing is that it still does that at the end. It still forms the title at the end, but it still says the title in the normal font, you know, at early on in the credits. It's almost like they said, no, we still have to have it after the first couple of credits. And like, tons of movies leave the title till the end. That's not that weird. That's normal. So that's just weird. It's not a big complaint, but it's just weird. The other thing, they made a choice. McG and Co. made a choice to make this opening title sequence a giant homage to the first film's title sequence, right? It's the same style. They're going for like a modern version on it, their own little take on it. But they
Did the first one have the metal clanking, or is that the second one?
As the second one.
Okay.
So they went to this effort to do one that is paying tribute to that original film, and they don't use the theme music? What?
You get the dun-dun-dun-dun.
That is not the theme music. That is the backing track to the theme music. Oh my god. Yeah, that's the, like, this movie uses the dun 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 like 2 or 3 times, right, total. One's in the titles,
That's
one's
right in the beginning, and like maybe at the
end.
like the last scene.
It's in a scene towards the end, then it's just at the start of the end credits as well, right? They use it 3 times. And it bugs me because I thought, oh, maybe the last time it'll actually go into the score. It'll go into the music. It'll go into the do 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 do. Maybe it'll actually do it, and it never does. And I don't know if it's a choice from the director. I don't know if it's Danny Elfman being like, I don't want to use the themes of the old. I want to do my own things. I don't know what it is, but this upsets me on so many fundamental levels. Like, to go to the effort to recreate the opening titles from Terminator 1 and then not use the music, like, what are you doing? What life choices have you made? What is your childhood trauma? McG.
You need to take a break.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Find your center.
Oh dear.
Well, I mean, at least it doesn't have like the doodly 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 of like the Danny Elfman score.
Oh yeah, dun 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 dun. Doesn't have that.
Yeah. There's no like chorus in the background or anything.
True. That would have been very out of place in the movie for sure. What other spoiler-free stuff have we got to talk about? Is there anything else like sort of generally that you wanted to bring up before plot stuff?
I mean, no, not really. We sort of talked about the tone and the music and some of the character stuff. We haven't really talked about our main guy at all. I don't know if you want
Marcus?
to.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what I'll say about him I can say in spoiler stuff, but Sam Worthington's kind of a decent blank slate of a human being, right? He's very much not a great actor, but you can put him in a role and direct him well enough to get a likable enough performance. Not a great performance.
I think he's fine. I don't think he's a bad actor at all. And like, yeah, okay, maybe he's a little dull, but he's not like a. What was the last movie we watched?
Philadelphia Experiment.
Yeah, Philadelphia Experiment. He's not like that kind of dull, you know?
Sure. Well, no, I always
just a little too everyman. He plays the part of the like the convict with who's getting a second chance or whatever. Like, okay, like I think he was like that's why I kind of would have preferred him as John Connor, even just because he at least looks the part of like someone who's like, I don't know. Like he's got
I'm not gonna go.
He's got something that Christian Bale isn't putting in the performance, you know. Like I buy him as a guy who's tough.
I'm not gonna go as far and say that because like Sam Worthington is okay. Like he's kind of like I think he's a likable enough kind of generic looking dude who's a sort of generic sort of caliber of actor, right? He's not particularly great. But what's funny about this to me is that I always like to joke that like people used to always complain even more than I am. Like I'm not complaining. I think he's okay. Like, he's fine. Like he's likable enough. He doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I don't understand why Hollywood just kind of stopped using him.
But people were complaining. I remember when this came out and then Avatar came out, people were really riding them hard, like on the internet. Like people really were tearing them to shreds for being bland and generic. And what's really funny to me about this, the joke that I always like to make, is that what they did with Terminator Genesis is they gave you what you thought Sam Worthington was, which is Jai Courtney, and they showed you what that really is like. Because Jai Courtney
he's pretty bland.
He is
generic.
Bland and terrible, and he's a franchise killer. He killed the Terminator franchise. I mean, it's back already, so maybe he didn't. But in terms of quality, he killed the Terminator franchise. He killed the Die Hard franchise. Like within it was like back to back. He did Die Hard 5 and Terminator 5, and both of them are the worst movies.
Movie that I've ever seen in theaters.
Suicide Squad. Yeah. Although bizarrely, he's like one of the slightly better elements of that movie.
Actually, I do agree with that.
He's mildly amusing in that train wreck.
Because he's drunk the whole time, or he's pretending to be drunk, and he's actually not bad at it. You know?
Yeah. So much so that they're actually bringing him back, even though they're kind of rebooting it.
Oh, they are bringing him back?
Yeah, he's on that list. Yeah, that big like list of names that the Gunn put out of all the people in it.
That is such a bizarre list of names.
Taika Waititi's in there.
I know.
There's some speculation that he's going to be the leader of like the Russian Suicide Squad, which is because there was an arc in the comics where they felt like the Russian version of them, and he's going to be the leader of like this villain Suicide Squad in the movie.
I can't believe I'm looking forward to Suicide Squad 2, but it's probably mostly because Taika Waititi is in it.
It's because James Gunn is directing it. Like I like James Gunn as a director, so I trust that it'll probably be a fun movie. But again, it's not. I
like the first two Guardians. I like the second Guardians a lot more than most people. I actually like it more than the first Guardians.
I like the first one more, but the second one does have a lot of good stuff in it. I liked this film. Was it Super with Rainn Wilson and Ellen Page? I liked that movie. I liked his movie Slither with Nathan Fillion and Elizabeth Banks.
That movie, yeah,
that's a fun movie. That's a really funny movie. Michael Rooker's in all these movies because he's Michael Rooker and James Gunn loves working with him. He's
in this movie too. He's in Suicide Squad too.
Oh, he is, yeah. And keep in mind it's called The Suicide Squad because we are not a sequel. We're not doing two. We're just The Suicide Squad.
My bad.
Yes, this is important. I
saw Will Smith wasn't on the list.
Oh, I noticed that as well. Yeah, but yeah, we got a lot of good people on there. I'll tell you. So I watched the director's cut of Salvation, just because it happened to be the version that was available, and
I don't think I did.
There's not a lot of differences. It was like 2.5 minutes or something like that of a difference. And you know what's funny is that there's a moment early on where there's like an extra like robot attack. Right early on when they were going through water, there's like a sort of like one of the sort of tire track like ones, which that's something that's missing from this actually is the big ones with the tire tracks. Like where are they?
Yeah, like the tank ones.
Yeah. Not cool enough in 20.
They kind of look like Ed 209.
Yeah.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, not cool enough in 2009 apparently. Yeah.
No, but they were awesome looking in the first two.
I want them, damn it. Where are they? So there's like an extra little attack there, and then the only other real thing that's a big difference is there's a scene with Moon Bloodgood's character, Blair Williams, and I got to this scene and almost immediately assumed that this was the added stuff because I'm like, I remember this, and I feel like this is what they put in to give it an R rating. You see her boobs. She has a topless scene in the director's cut.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah. She before the sort of the actiony scene, I'll say. It's when they're sort of camping for the night, before the sort of the actiony part of that happens. There's a scene where she's like sort of like cleaning, like there's like water spraying out somewhere, or I think it's just raining actually, it's just raining, and she like just like takes off her top takes off her top, and I'm like, what's happening? Why am I seeing boobs? This is weird. This is so random. And it's a weird moment because Sam Martin kind of turns around and like stares at her, and then she notices he's staring at her and like covers herself up. But it's kind of played as this kind of weird like connection moment. Like,
well, they have a bit of a connection in a later scene. I don't really like it the way you're describing it because I actually really dig her character because she shows up right away. She's kind of like our Sarah Connor substitute, but it was kind of satisfying to see like a tough, no nonsense woman in a Terminator franchise. You know?
Yeah, it's just a shame that our entire character kind of only exists to serve for Marcus's plot. Like, it's very much just there to.
Yeah, but Marcus' plot is the main plot.
I mean, that's true.
Which may be a mistake, but
I think it is a mistake, and we'll talk about that. but
she's totally capable and awesome in the film, even though she's in it for a short moment. And I like their chemistry together when they have that little scene later on. But the scene that you're describing doesn't really seem to fit with the character as I understand. But unless she was trying to like flirt with him and be like, "Oh, my top came off."
It did not feel like flirting to me, but I mean, it felt like she thought he'd already left, like and walked over somewhere else, but he'd actually stopped and turned around and was leering.
I mean, they're both beautiful people. Like, do they really care?
It's funny actually we're talking about Danny Elfman because Helena Bonham Carter's in this, and I associate her with Tim Burton movies more than anything. And I hate her character.
Can't imagine why.
I hate everything her face is attached to in this movie. I can't say anything until spoilers, but I hate everything she's associated with in this movie. That's all I'm saying. Do you agree or disagree with that? That look told me that you think I'm an idiot.
Yeah, it's not my favorite part of the film. I don't mind the first scene with her, but the when her character comes up again, I don't like that direction at all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I don't really care that much in the first scene, but the first scene is just, you know, the setup, like.
Right. Plus, it's odd because you see Helena Bonham Carter,
yeah,
and you're like, okay, she's too big of a name to only have one scene. So the whole film, you're just kind of expecting her to come back in some way, which I think is maybe a miscast for that reason.
Yeah.
Why not just get no name?
I agree. Get a no name. In fact, do you know what worked so well about the T-1000? It was a no name. Robert Patrick, no one knew who he was, and it worked perfectly. Oh, let's talk about Michael Ironside. Actually, Michael Ironside's in this movie as the leader of the Resistance, and I like Michael Ironside. I do. Like, he's a very likable B-movie actor.
He has got a great face.
He's got a great face.
Great voice.
The problem is, though, is I associate his voice with B-movies at this point, and he was really taking me out of this because every time he was
Starship Troopers, that's what I think of when I see him.
Every time he started like yelling orders or was giving shit, it felt like, I don't know, it made it feel more like a B-movie. It didn't really fit with the tone either of the Terminator movies or this movie. It didn't fit with either like the old movies or this movie.
No, the thing I didn't like about the character is just that, okay, so he doesn't respect John Connor at all.
Oh, he's
always yelling down at him. And it's just like, who is John Connor? Like, he is not this guy that we've been told.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's in the director's cut, by the way, is there's an extra little tidbit. The first time they're in a scene together in the submarine, he pulls out a gun and points it at John Connor's head when he thinks, just to make sure that he's not betrayed them or something like that. And it's like a really weird little scene. Yeah, it's weird. I'm like Cat, and you
don't ever, like, every scene that we get John Connor in, it's like he's made weaker. Like they purposely make him look like the underdog or the weak man amongst them, and I just don't understand. He's not this legendary hero.
Here's the thing. I don't mind if he's not that at first. If that's the story of him becoming that, and no one believes him, because they mentioned at the start.
He's just a soldier. He's just an exceptional.
Which was just fine. No, but that's fine.
But that's it.
But if that's the story, that's okay, because they mentioned at the start that no one really believes him. Like they think he's an idiot. They think, oh, he thinks all this stuff's going to happen. No one believes him. I'm fine with that if the story's about him proving that this is going to happen. If the story's about him earning respect, I'm okay with that. The problem with this movie is that he's not the main character, and he's basically in a subplot until it's time for the third act to start, and then it almost starts to treat him like he is the main character. So everything that happens at the end that's supposed to have any emotional impact doesn't land. It doesn't land because he's not earned it. Because we don't actually spend the film with him. We spend the film with Marcus, and every time we spend with John Connor, it's just these little moments of like him either, like you say, being yelled at, or just try to do this plan, or whatever. There's not a lot of range with him. So anytime they try to like make a big moment with him where it's either emotional or he's trying to be inspirational and like talking over the radio, it feels false. It rings false because he's not earned it. I don't think it's because Christian Bale is the terrible choice to play the role. I don't even think it's because we can't focus on John Connor. I don't even think it's because he can't start as weak and build up to be the strong John Connor that we know. That I think that could be an interesting story. Is him earning that respect, him earning that he can't just like, because that could almost be like something you play with, the idea that he was expecting to have respect because he was always told since he was a kid that you're going to be this important person, but it's not just going to be handed to him. He has to take it. He has to like, no,
sure,
this is why I'm respected.
The third movie is canon. I mean, the third movie, he was like barely even like that kid. John Connor that we saw was way cooler than he was.
Yeah,
way more of a leader.
Terminator 3 John Connor was a weasel, so this almost is in line. If anything, he's too much of a badass in this to make me believe it's the same guy.
Maybe I really think that he was miscast. Like, I know Christian Bale is a great actor, and it's hard to say that he can do no wrong, but I don't think he was a good choice for this movie. And it is unfortunate that every scene that he's supposed to be this leader, we see him as not a leader, but someone who's super weak, and he like has zero respect from anyone. And it's I still think that somebody else could have done a better job, and I do think like even the other guy in the movie would have done a better job, because he just at least
you're setting the bar too low.
He's more level-headed.
You're setting the bar too low. You're just saying that because he's the other guy that's there. Like, we can do better. We can do better. We can.
I don't think Sam Worthington's that bad, but like
we can cast a weight on that. Is what I'm saying.
I think he's, at least Sam Worthington as Marcus is like cool and collected and is able to think things out first, and he's not like just always. Christian Bale's a bit of a mouth breather. I never noticed until this movie.
Well, he's only mouth breathing in this because he's constantly yelling. Like he's always out of breath. I mouth breathe when I'm out of breath. It happens.
Yeah, you're right.
I want to get into the interesting ideas with this character that I think they could build a movie around, and they don't. And they make some really weird choices of when to drop certain pieces of information that I think are the totally wrong moments to do it. Like, here's an example, right? The moment that John Connor hears the name Kyle Reese, right? If this is a John Connor who knows who Kyle Reese is, right? And the moment he hears it is like this nothing moment where some random dude that we never see again just happens to say, "Oh yeah, there's some civilian named Kyle Reese," and it's a nothing moment, and he just kind of like glares at him. There's a moment later on when he's talking to Marcus where that should be the first time he hears that name. That should be the thing. Like, if we're going to do this story where we have these two guys who don't trust each other, and we're going to bring them together over something, I feel like Marcus knowing Kyle Reese should be the kind of the first thing that kind of almost starts to bring them together. It should be a moment. It should be a moment where he's just not going to listen to him, but then he says, Kyle Reese is in trouble. And that's the thing that John Connor like stops dead in his tracks and makes him think twice. Because he knows who Kyle Reese is.
Yeah, because he has to do something in that case, right? Otherwise he's not born.
Yeah. But it's the idea that, he's listening to the tapes that his mother left, right? We hear the tape that Sarah Connor left for him, right? And it's this idea of tying back into the original movies, and I think the idea of the moment of him like finally meeting his father, but obviously Kyle Reese doesn't know that he's his father, so it adds this extra layer to it. Like, I think they whiff in a lot of those moments. They should be really good. They should be the really exciting moments. Here's another. I won't say when it's said, but the moment where someone says, "Come with me if you want to live," they waste it. They waste it in a moment where it's completely useless and that does nothing. And it shouldn't be said there. It should be John Connor saying that to Kyle Reese when he saves him, when he sees him. That should be when "Come with me if you want to live" should have been said. Because the moment it's said, it's kind of used to like, oh, just so you know, this is Kyle Reese. But we don't associate that just with Kyle Reese. That's been used by multiple characters in this franchise, and I feel like,
I mean, he's the one who says it first.
well, he is, but think about it. Think about it. He learns that from his father, or from his son, I guess. Actually, he learns it from his son. He learns it from John Connor. John Connor says it to him, and he always remembered when he said that. So he says it to Sarah, and then the reason why the Terminator from the future says it to Sarah Connor is because
He said it first, but it makes sense if you do it that way.
Yeah, but the reason why Terminator says it in Terminator 2 is because adult John Connor has told him to say it. Because adult John Connor knows it's going to mean something to her. It all makes sense. It works. This is easy. This is an easy movie to write. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard for these Hollywood writers? It's so easy. God damn it. It's still better than 3, don't get me wrong. There's still moments and stuff that I like in this. But
oh yeah, well 3 is a comedy.
3 is a comedy.
And the Terminator should never be a comedy.
Get out now. Talk to the hand.
Talk to the hand.
What
do you think of Anton Yelchin?
Yeah, he's fine. Like, I mean, I like Anton Yelchin. He's I think it's kind of a thankless role in a weird way. I honestly don't think again, this is something else where I'm going to rewrite the movie in my head. I don't think we should see him until John does. I think the first time that he hears that name is the first time we should hear that name.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't see him until we see him in the prison. I think following him around on his own before, and I get that it sets up that he's kind of this young guy who wants to do good and he's always trying to do the best and be a part of the resistance, but I don't think we should see him. I think because this is the thing. This was supposed to be the first chapter in a trilogy. They said that when this was coming out, and the ending clearly hints that it's only the start of the story. It's only the start of a trilogy of this war, and I feel like, although that said, the whole plan to like do everything at the end, it kind of like is under the impression that it's going to like save the finish the war and win everything. It's clearly not, but whatever. Anyway, but like if this is a trilogy, and clearly the through line in the trilogy is John Connor, then that's the story that we have to follow because it's his story, it's his journey, it's his arc. He's the one that we should be attached to, and to an extent, Kyle Reese. Because I think if you're going to map this trilogy out, then the second movie is the bonding between John and Kyle, right? It's John training Kyle becoming the Kyle Reese that we knew in Terminator 1. And then Terminator, and the third one would be like the final fight, the battle, and early on in the film, John would like say that someone has to volunteer, and it would be the struggle of Kyle over the course of the film, like coming to the point where he accepts that and agrees to go back in time. And because maybe he says that, maybe he asks him about it before they even know anyone knows there's going to be time travel. This is just something that he like knows about because they've not found the base yet, or they've not broke in and found the time disruptor field or whatever they called it. Like I don't know, like I know I'm being like a total like nerd here and like fan rating the whole thing, but I feel like there's so many like rich ideas and the potential of telling the story of someone who's supposed to be a leader and feels forced into it, of like knowing that someone younger out there is their father and having to protect them and having to live up to all this. Plus you have this great cyberpunk horror setting, and we get Terminator Salvation, which is like meh. Like,
yeah, it is pretty meh. It's not, maybe it's just because we watched the third one that I don't think it's the worst thing. I think it is kind of ballsy, and now that I didn't really know that it was supposed to be a trilogy, and now that you say that, yeah, it feels pretty unfinished. I understand your passion for it though, because the first two are great. I think the first one is a masterpiece, and this one is so far removed from that, even though it claims to be part of the same universe. It clearly just cannot be.
I do want to just add again, I know that it's technically a different future from Terminator 1 and 2, because Judgment Day changed, it's further on the timeline, nothing has to match up with those first two movies.
But this is all the same story, right? It's all the same John Connor.
No, but technically this is the thing, that me complaining about the technology, the aesthetics being different, I know that can be explained away, because it's not technically the same future, I know that. But here's the thing, I don't give a shit, because
I still want to see that world.
Yeah, I still want to see.
World that
that's
they set up, and I liked it.
That's the feeling of the future in the Terminator movies. That is the inspiration that I want them to take from. So I don't care if we can technically say why, we can get away with it because technically things have changed. I don't give a shit. I don't care. This future war is not the future war of the Terminator that I envisioned for decades in my mind. It's not, and the one that I envisioned in decades wasn't just out of nowhere though. It was what was shown to me in Terminator 1 and 2. And obviously it was going to like have new effects and be more advanced and add things to it and all sorts. but the feeling that they evoked, especially in the first movie, you know, that first movie with you know, how dangerous it was and like going into the tunnels, and
it's a really rich atmosphere that James Cameron came up with for those future scenes in both the first two films.
and
Like,
this movie
if
is
it ain't broke, you know.
you just had a key word there. There is so much atmosphere. This movie
Yeah.
is kind of devoid of atmosphere for the majority of the film.
Yeah, it's a little hollow.
All right, well, I think we can go into spoilers then. So I will give the spoiler warning here and now, and so full spoilers for the film. But before we start the spoiler section, I will take this time to let Tara tell you about Patreon.
Yeah, if you like what we do and want to support the channel, you can go to our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/SmileFestTV. Donate as little as $1 per month gets you a bunch of bonus content, including bonus episodes of The Ace, which is what you're watching right now. You can see our reviews of some B movies, some movies that we just think are not quite worthy of the main
Don't
show.
sell them like that. The lesser movies. No, they're the fun and goofy. Like we did Time
Well, we
Cop.
got Trancers on there.
Trancers, Leviathan was the most
Judge
recent
Dredd.
one. Yeah, 95 Judge Dredd. We did some good stuff.
Time Cop definitely should have been on the main channel, but you know, we needed an incentive, so if you guys want our opinion on Time Cop, just $1, $1.
$1
You
a
can
month.
check out the whole back catalog.
Yep. It keeps growing once per month. Keeps growing. And at the $5 tier, of course, you get to vote an episode once per month, and you get early access. So you know, go to Patreon and have a look and see if you're interested. All right, spoilers then for Terminator Salvation. We start the movie with a weird flashback to 2003, where Marcus is in a prison cell, and Helena Bonham Carter shows up and is like, "Hey, I'm dying of cancer, yo. Could you sign your body over to science after we kill you, and I'll use it for weird kinky sex science experiments, which might cure cancer." I'm embellishing a little bit, I'll admit.
She started off as real gangster and then went into straight naughty mode.
I mean, that's Helena Bonham Carter in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. This is what happens when you don't watch Tim Burton movies. You don't know her characters.
Oh dear. So he signs this thing, and he wants like a kiss before he signs it. Like that's his stipulation.
Mm-hmm.
I'll set it for a kiss for reasons that I never quite understood, to be honest. Outside of just wanting a kiss before he dies.
Yeah. I mean, I like the line. It sounds cold and like, ooh. He says that's what death tastes like.
Yeah.
Because she's dying and he's about to, you know, die also. So it's just like a preview.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cold and cool.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it made me uncomfortable. It's not the first time I've heard it after a kiss. So, anyway, that was just supposed to be a joke, Tara. It was a bit of humor, a bit of levity. So then we jump forward. It's 2018, and John Connor's got into like this. It's basically where his body was being worked on. This science experiment, this old base they found, and they're going in. They get attacked a little bit. Everyone down there gets killed but him, because he ends up coming up to call in the helicopter, and everyone dies when they're down there. And we have a scene, and this is an okay little scene where a T-600, who doesn't have its legs anymore, comes after him, and he kind of has to like get away, and he's like shooting at it, and it's not quite working, and he ends up like sort of eventually winning with a big minigun,
Gatling gun.
yeah, big Gatling gun from the helicopter, which is actually one of my weird things in this movie, is that there's a lot of shooting at Terminators in this as if it'll do anything, and I'm like, you know better. Why are you using this handgun?
That Gatling gun went off like 45 times before it actually downed the Terminator.
No, but before that, he's like shooting it in the face with a handgun. And I'm like, what do you think the handgun is going to do? Like, I don't know.
I mean, so did his mom did it too. Against the liquid metal.
She doesn't know what the liquid metal is yet, though. I mean, she knows. I mean, she's hoping it'll slow it down. This is just the metal's face. This isn't doing shit to it.
I mean, the Gatling gun did the trick eventually.
It did.
And it was a cool shot. I liked it. Plus, it was like the only time where we see John Connor be a badass in the whole film.
Yeah. Well, I think I would have liked more of his genius and like how he thinks through things. Because there's a scene later on how he like steals one of the bikes, like one of the robot bikes, And it's like a little plan that he has, and I like seeing him like have a little plan, work it through and be smart.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the John Connor I want to see, is the strategic
Right.
John Connor.
Like a lot of great generals of history and our future should have,
Hopefully,
as a quality.
if we're not all dead, yeah. So, like,
I mean, like John Connor,
but there's
this great savior of humanity.
there is definitely an attempt to make him feel cool in the next scene though, and I hate it, where he's like, I want to find where the main again, they've got like this is like a total cargo plane they've got that he's flying in, and he's asking to be taken to base, which turns out is a submarine, and the guy's like, nah, that's a need to know basis, you don't need to know the name of the place of the main base. And he's like, well, I'll just jump then, tell him to come and get me, get some divers to come and get me. And he just like jumps out the plane like as if it's nothing, and it's like it just drops into the rough ocean, and all I could think was, they're trying really hard in this scene to make him feel like a badass, and it's just making me roll my eyes. Like, it just feels so forced.
Yeah.
And then we get Michael Ironside.
It works when Captain America does it.
Yes, that's true. Well, he's actually enhanced for a start.
Yes.
But he gets yelled at by Michael Ironside, and then the guy's like, "Oh yeah, there's like a civilian somewhere called Kyle Reese at LA." Blah blah blah.
Here's the thing I don't like.
Yes. Okay. Go on.
The reason his name is brought up is because he's on a list of, or John Connor is on a list of Terminator, like kill list for Terminators. They're looking for John Connor, and he is number 2 on that list, and number 1 is Kyle Reese. And I don't know why the Terminators would know Kyle Reese's name.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would know his name, and I don't know, because you would think like Sarah Connor would keep that information, and so would John. Like, he doesn't, like, no one else knows that Kyle Reese is his father, and Terminator shouldn't know that. And excuse me for sniffing.
That's fine. There you go.
But and the worst thing that happens from that is later on in the film, when Kyle Reese is actually imprisoned by Terminators or by Skynet, and like they don't just kill him. Like, he's number 1 on their kill list. I'm jumping way ahead, but like, yeah. But I hate this introduction. I really do. I know you said you hated it because it's like anticlimactic for him to hear that name at that moment, but it just doesn't make sense. It rings like poor writing for me.
It rings false on multiple levels. Oh, you froze! Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a crazy look. That's like, oh, I'm going to kill everyone look. So I like, yeah, like I agree. Like, it's bad in multiple levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you laughing at?
I try to get the pose back.
Nah, I didn't quite nail it.
Oh.
So
can't do those candid ones.
Yeah. So Marcus wakes up though. He wakes up out of the place they were, and he's all like covered in mud. But he steals this dead guy's uniform, saunters off into the city, and he's walking down a street, and he sees like a T-600 down in the distance, and he's like, "Hey, Mr. Robot. Hello, I'm lost. Can you help me, please?" And
hello, sir. Where's everybody?
And young Kyle just jumps out from the side and like pins him down, because obviously the T-600 starts shooting at him, and he's like, "Come on, you idiot! You can't be shot. We have to like sort of like run and hide." And him and his friend, his little kid friend, have got like a whole trap set up, all this like rubble they're going to drop on it, and this it's quite smart. Again, this is the sort of stuff we should see John Connor doing, not Kyle Reese. But Kyle should be learning this from John Connor. In fact, hell, there's even a moment where Marcus like shows him how to like not get a gun grabbed off him, and it's like, this is like a father-son moment. Why isn't John Connor having this moment with him? That would feel like it makes more sense. This weird, cyclical thing.
Right. Yeah.
Goddamn writers.
I don't hate that he's learning how to do these things from Marcus, because clearly John Connor is like just not cool in this film at all.
And whose fault is that?
I think it's a series of unfortunate decisions.
I think it starts with the writers. I think the writers they wrote a script that was not interested in exploring John Connor, which is infuriating. Anyway,
well, they wrote a script where they wanted to explore a different type of machine, like, right? Like, it's supposed to be like the line between humans and machines, which we've sort of seen in other Terminator movies, like in order to beat the machine, you have to become like it, or the dangers of becoming too much like the machines, and then you lose your humanity. And this is like, okay, well, let's just take that theme and make a hybrid. I'm jumping again, but like,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's fine. Well, it's fine. You could scale up the way if you need to. It's a really weird focus for me. And I don't necessarily hate the character of Marcus. Like, if anything, I'd feel like it's fine to have him here and have the idea they're going for. This
Well,
idea.
he's kind of the most interesting character in the movie, which is a shame. But
Well, yeah, I mean that's true, but like, I don't want him to have his plot at the expense of actually giving the supposed main character. And I say that because Marcus is dead at the end of this. Marcus does not survive until the next movie. Like, he's a
okay,
one and
you're
done.
jumping ahead too, so now I don't feel so bad.
But like, this is why John Connor should be at least equal, if not more, the main focus, because John Connor is going to be the through line for your whole trilogy. I mean, admittedly, it never happened, but like, that was the whole point. So they bond a little bit, and they're traveling, they're looking for a car, and they end up at a gas station for looking for gas, and these sort of bandits come out. It's very Fallout 3 kind of thing. And like, no, this is our gas station. You can't take stuff. But there's a nice old lady who's like, no. This little one needs to eat. We'll give them some stuff. We'll be nice. And they're like, oh, thank you. Yeah. But of course.
Yeah, this is the part that reminds me of a zombie film, where you like have to you have to survive against other humans as well as your common enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't think was necessary. Although the scene that's later that also sort of makes you think of that is much worse.
Mm-hmm.
But so the giant Transformer Terminator shows up. It starts to grab people out the building.
How did it sneak up on them?
Yes. How quietly was this thing walking?
It's like a skyscraper. It is huge.
Like, maybe if they showed it like actually transform, maybe it's literally got like a vehicle mode that can slowly just roll. Like, maybe then I'll buy it.
It's got like 2 Prius engines.
Yeah.
On its feet.
Yeah, well, yeah. You think about how hard it is for even a car to sneak up on you. Like, if there's a car that stops outside your house at any time, you can hear the engine, and then you can hear the door slam. You can always hear those two things.
Yeah.
It's very noticeable.
Yeah, this thing is enormous. It's like a giant transformer. It's like Godzilla's just snuck up on you somehow.
It's the same complaint as at the end of Jurassic Park. Like, how did the T-Rex like get in there without everyone hearing it? Given especially since the rest of the film.
Yeah, but that's a great movie, so we don't care.
Yeah, but the rest of the film is like showing you how much like you notice it coming because the water and the rumble and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, it's able to stealth in because plot.
Hey, that T-Rex can do a lot of things. It can scale walls.
Yes, it can. Like you say, it's a good movie, so you don't really care. But but I mean, when it's not a good movie, you will nitpick it because it's sucky. So I have a big action scene, which is not too bad. As much as I don't like the Transformer Terminator itself, I don't mind the action scene where they're in the truck and they have to try and blow it up, and they do that little reference where they use like a flare. It's very similar to the pipe bombs from Terminator One. It's a very similar kind of visual, and I think that's intentional. I think it's intentionally trying to conjure the image of Kyle Reese with the pipe bombs. That's okay, and the bikes are chasing them. Obviously, they eventually get nabbed anyway, except obviously Marcus, who's left alone. But
I don't really understand the need to have the little girl with them.
Because little kids make you sympathetic.
Yeah, I don't understand why Kyle Reese needs to have her there. Like, I think it's kind of cool that she was born like after Judgment Day, so she's got like all this trauma and stuff, and like that's a neat thing to have. But she could just be like, I don't know, in the Resistance base. Have her like following Kyle Reese around, and he's always taking care of her. I think it's an odd choice. I don't think I need it in the movie, and yeah,
it's superfluous. Yeah, it just sits there.
She doesn't really add anything to the film.
Yeah. Marcus is left on his own. Basically, John Connor realizes, because he's like hearing over the chat that there's activity happening and there's civilians, and he knows it's Kyle. And he's like, oh, send in fighter jets. Again, I hate that they have fighter jets. Like, what? But they send in fighter jets and try and help them by blasting the Terminators. And they take down one of the flying ones, and that's whatever, but Marcus is left on his own, and it's one of the fighter pilots who turns out to be Moon Bloodgood's character, who's Blair, and she is dangling. He helps her down, and they end up walking together, and they have this whole thing where they're out in the rain and the campfire. And there's a weird scene where we get the very zombie apocalypse thing where there's the bandits, the untrustworthy people who are vicious.
Yeah.
They try and assault her sexually, and ultimately this felt a little bit forced to me as well, because it felt like the whole purpose of this scene is just to let Marcus be a hero. Like, it felt like, no, we have to care about him so that when it's revealed what he is, we trust that he's a good person, you know, in the next couple
Well, yeah,
of scenes.
I mean, the first scene you see him in, like, he's a convict on death row. Like, he has to have something that's redeemable, right?
Yeah, but see, like, this just feels like a really cheap way of doing it to me.
I guess, but I like that she also seemed pretty capable at the beginning of it. Like, eventually she's overwhelmed because there's like 4 against 1. Like, whatever. Like, it's understandable, but I at least like her character a lot in it, and you know, it's
Yeah, she's
I don't
okay.
know.
Yeah,
Maybe people disagree, but I liked the way she was done before you told me about the boobs.
No, I mean, she's all right. Like, I don't have a problem with her specifically. It's just the concept of this scene. It's the easy way to get sympathy. You know, it's the same with like a horror movie. Like, how do you make the villain evil? Oh, you have them do this kind of thing. It's just the cheap, easy way to doing it.
Yeah,
it feels so out of place in this movie. Even though we had the orderlies in the second one who were kind of, you know, sleazy. Like
you need somebody who sees Marcus as human, and she does.
Yeah, I think there was maybe a better way of having her see that without going down this trope. You know, because it feels so out of place in the Terminator. Like, when have we ever had characters like this in the Terminator? Like, when have we ever had this at all? It's so totally out of place.
Bill Paxton?
I think they were punks, but they weren't. And they were trying to do it to the Terminator. Their chances were slim, at best.
I miss Bill Paxton.
Yeah, I do too. He's great. If you haven't seen Near Dark, you have to watch Near Dark for Bill Paxton.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Unless you're telling the people out there.
Well, you and the people. I've said it to everyone. Watch Near Dark. It's one of the best vampire movies ever made. And it's also got Lars Henriksen in it. And Jeanette Goldstein. It's an Aliens reunion.
What?
Yeah, and it's also Catherine Bigelow's best movie. I'll stand by that. I'll fight.
Whoa. I like Zero Dark 30.
Zero Dark 30 is good.
I like The Hurt Locker too.
That's also good.
Actually, I really like Point Break.
I only saw Point Break once. I don't have fond memories of it. Maybe I'd like it more if I saw it again. But
I think you would.
I think when I saw it, it just felt like an earlier version of Fast and the Furious, because it's actually the exact same plot as Fast and the Furious, the first one.
Well, yeah, but you can't blame Point Break for that.
I can, but it was on my mind, and that said, I completely forgot.
I've never seen the first Fast and the Furious movie because I have zero interest in cars.
Don't. It's bullshit. It's so boring.
I've seen the 7th one, and I actually kind of liked it because it was just like
it's
a
silly.
fun,
Yeah. Yeah, I think 5 onwards are like that. But
film.
the first one is about them stealing DVD players off the back of a truck. That's like the plot of the first one.
Yeah. No interest.
Yeah, no, don't. So they bond a little bit. They go back to the base, and there's mines that are magnetic, which kind of is the first big hint that he's got metal in him. You know, it's like, oh, he's a machine.
You say the first big hint, but we all watched the trailer for the movie.
Assuming you hadn't seen it, I just in the context of the movie.
Which is, we have to bring it up though, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's one of the biggest travesties in in movie trailer history, and it's not exclusive to this Terminator film. They did it in Genesis also.
Oh, it's even worse in Genesis.
I think they did it in T2.
T2?
Where they...
What, you mean
where
Arnold?
they show... Like, imagine when you first saw Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator in T2, and you didn't know that he was the good guy.
Okay, that's fair, but the thing with T2 is, though, is that that's not like a big, like, third act thing or anything like that. That's not even a second act thing. That is something we learn very early on in the film.
Sure.
You know, it's kind of the premise
I
of
imagine
T2.
it would be tough, but wouldn't that be awesome, though? Because the last time you saw the Terminator was in the first movie, where he was this unstoppable killing machine.
Even in 1991, I think it was impossible to save that for the movie.
Okay.
I think it was impossible.
You like Terminator 2. It's a pass. But
here's the thing about Terminator Genesis' example of this, though, is that the thing that movie spoils is also something that's so horrendous as an idea that I'm almost glad it spoiled it, because at least my expectations going in were in the exact right place.
I'm not convinced, now that you say that this is supposed to be a trilogy, that John Connor wouldn't have gone that route anyway, of becoming like Marcus.
Oh God, I hope not. Like, I'm glad it didn't happen then. Well, no part of it.
Well, it does happen. It happens in Genesis.
Genesis is not continuity with Salvation. Well, maybe it loosely is the same way this is loosely it continuity with Terminator 3, but
Yeah.
yeah. No, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so he gets captured because he blows up in a mine, and he's like half of his face is like. Well, his face isn't too bad yet. That happens a little bit later, but you know his chest is all open. There's metal, and it's like, oh, your machine. But he's got all the memories of the man. He's got all the soul, the memories of Marcus. John's like, oh, we've been at war since before either of us were born, and you've tried to kill my mother, and blah 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 blah. And then of course, this is the big thing that bugs me is that I wanted Marcus to say the name Kyle Reese and have that be the thing. Especially, I mean, obviously I said earlier that I wanted it to be the first time that John hears it. But even in this context, let's say that we'd already heard it, whatever. Marcus doesn't say Kyle Reese to John. John Connor says it first to him. And it just, the moment just feels weird that it's like, well, also, Marcus can't, like, you know, he's like, oh, I don't Kyle Reese, I don't Kyle, like, yeah, it feels so weird and, like, unproven now, whereas if he had said it first, it'd be the thing that makes John Connor doubt that maybe he is not, like, super evil, or at least there's a reason to not kill him right now. There's a reason to keep it around. Like, you know, I don't know. Bug me. It bugged me. And it makes him question everything because like his mum never told him about like these weird flesh hybrids kind of thing. So he's feeling all doubtful. And
well,
Kate's
why
around.
Do they exist? Is it because they're trying to like was Helena Bonham Carter part of Skynet, or was she like a former Skynet employee or something doing her own thing?
She was a part of Cyberdyne for sure, or part of the company.
Cyberdyne.
Like,
okay, yeah, and so were they just trying to like cure cancer by, like, is that why these Terminators were even models so that they can be like housing for humans, so that we don't have our flimsy bodies anymore and we can live forever, or something? Was that like the goal of Cyberdyne?
Assuming they already existed, I mean, maybe you could say that they had plans for like sort of like spare bodies essentially for people so they could switch. Maybe Skynet like looked at those plans in their history and said, "Oh, we can use that for my purpose, or you know, the machine's purpose. We'll use that as a fake body for my Terminators," kind of thing.
Well, right. That's why they have humans there, right? Is because they're trying to copy like human flesh so that they can make their new Terminators that will go back in time and all
Presumably,
that.
although in Terminator 1, Kyle does say they have humans building things, working for them, which we don't really see any examples of in this movie. But hey ho.
Hey ho, indeed.
Yeah, screw you, movie. That's what I'm saying. So, yeah, no, it's just like, yeah, I don't really get exactly like, is she in charge of Cyberdyne? Is she like high up in the company? Is she like, I don't get it either. I don't get, like, they never really go into exactly who she is or what her role is or why she has the power to do this.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of a cool, you know, lore thing, is that if that's why they were working on human-like machines, is because eventually they want to make something for our bodies, so we can get rid of the human body that breaks down easily and will die.
But why are you assuming
forever in this new form?
Why are you assuming that they were working on it at all?
Well, because of Marcus.
Okay, this movie.
Why else would he exist?
This movie.
What is he other than something, a science experiment for something like that?
Well, sure. I don't think the reason why Skynet's using them is the purpose he was originally intended for. Like, I feel like if we're going with the idea that they were doing something genuine with him, with his body, that Skynet is repurposed whatever the research originally was. Like, it wasn't like the purpose they were using him for in 2003 is not the same reason that Skynet ended up using him, or the same purpose that they ended up using him for. Right?
What else could it be though? Because he was on death row. So he had to be brought back to life with machines.
I don't know. Like, no, I don't mind the idea that Cyberdyne were working on some kind of like design before Terminator, before Judgment Day happened, and Skynet have repurposed it for themselves. But I actually don't really like. I always like the idea that everything that's built from the Terminators was just Skynet's idea. It was just its own design. And up until this movie, there's no suggestion really that there was any design from Cyberdyne to build like actual Terminators or or whatever, right? There was no hint that they were already working on these bodies. There was a deleted scene in Terminator 3, which I know you want to talk about, that kind of hinted that they were building like drone Terminator like human things.
You mean with Sergeant Candy?
I'm Sergeant Candy.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Candy.
If you've not seen this deleted scene for Terminator 3, they dub Arnold's voice, who plays this character who they're basing his body after, which, by the way, is stupid, first and foremost, that they tried to even do this. I'm glad they deleted it. Because the whole point is that the 101 is Arnold. So there's a 102, there's a 103, there's other models of like designs that look different. So why are they trying to make a big deal out of like just this one that we know? This is the one that they're going to use. Like, no, they have more than one.
It's a ridiculous scene.
It's a ridiculous
and it
scene.
Need to be cut, but it is so worth watching.
Oh, it's funny. It's hilarious.
Just so you can see what could have been. And it wouldn't have been out of place in Terminator 3, for as ridiculous as it is.
Yeah,
I wish they cut out a lot more scenes.
Sure. A good half the movie at least. Yeah. I do like I said, I don't hate the idea that Cyberdyne were working on something and Skynet,
like the next stage of human evolution, like they're trying to force it, right?
Sure, but
because she is dying, she has cancer, she is on herself on death row, so she has some kind of motivation.
What I'm saying is though, I don't think that has anything to do with the Terminators making their, or the Skynet making their Terminators.
You think that Skynet made Marcus?
No. In this context, what you're saying is that whatever they did to him before Judgment Day, it's an accident he's woken up. But it isn't, because the end Skynet says, no, we wanted to send you after them.
No. I know the Skynet is using him.
Yeah.
And like that's the whole thing. Like he rips out the chip and all that.
Yeah.
So like I know that part.
But my thing is though is that I would take it as an accident that he just happened to wake up because this explosion happened and it woke him up. So whatever was happening to him before Judgment Day is what did it. But it's not, because we know it isn't, because Skynet confirms that it isn't later. But
yeah.
I don't think whatever Cyberdyne or the scientists were doing to Marcus is in anything really to do with the idea of putting living tissue over their own metal endoskeletons. They might have taken the research, they might have looked at it, Skynet might have looked at it in history and said, hey, I can do that on our machines to make them infiltrators. We can do that.
Sure.
I do kind of hate though that the whole plan here to like have like this like flesh hybrid Terminator, like this real person with real memories. I kind of hate how that exists around the same time that the first T-800 exists. Like, surely this should be more advanced.
Yeah.
That kind of bugs me. Yeah, so they've got him captured, and Moonblonde Good lets him out because she sees him as a man and lets him escape. There's a bit of an action scene as they're escaping, and John actually lets him go because John gets attacked by like they've got these weird like swimming like tentacle Terminators. I thought they were a bit weird.
They're all right. I mean, they kind of, I don't really know what their purpose is.
Underwater surveillance, I guess. It's basically all I can think of.
Yeah.
But
they'd be better at finding submarines then.
But Marcus saves him. Marcus saves him and kills the thing. I mean, at this point, he's had a lot of fire in his face, so he's half of his like head's like been melted off, and you can see the metal. John kind of trusts him enough to like he'll let me go and like have a chance of going to like see if Kyle's alive. I need to go and save Kyle. And he's like, tell me if he's alive, and I'll come in. Blah 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 blah. With the cavalry, yada yada yada. And John's whole thing here is that basically Michael Ironside wants to just bomb the shit out of this place because they've got this thing, they've got this like digital code that'll turn the machines off. They've got this like kill switch code they think they have, the signal that they can broadcast. And obviously I'm sitting thinking like, of course you're not, because there's meant to be more of these movies and this is far too easy and cheap, and like it has to be tougher than this. Because literally they have this plan. The first time he goes to see Michael Ironside, like 20 minutes into the movie, if that, they've already got this plan that'll just win the war. And I'm like, no, you're not giving me the solution to the war 15 minutes into the first future war movie. There's no way this is real and going to happen, so I don't believe you for a second.
Yeah.
But he wants to bomb the place, and John's like, no, but I've got evidence to suggest that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of like innocent people in there, and we're going to kill them. And I do kind of like the idea that he like the one thing he says in his big speech, even though I think most of the speech falls flat. The one idea that I like in his speech when he's on the radio, he's like, if you're listening to this, you're the resistance. Is he says, there's no point in winning this war if we're no better than them. I actually like that idea. This idea that if we're not going to keep our humanity, then what's the goddamn point?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I
It was
like that.
good line.
It's a good line.
Uh,
I like that idea.
he's no Churchill, but yeah, he's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to say something. As much as I've nitpicked a lot of things in this movie, and as much as I've complained about a lot of things in this movie, I might shock you with something I'm about to say that I liked.
Oh, I didn't think you would have it. I liked list.
I don't hate. I don't hate.
Okay.
I don't hate the "I'll be back," and
Oh yeah, I didn't hate it
I
either.
actually think it kind of works. And again, I wish that the movie actually focused on him, so it felt more like a big deal when he said it. But when he's leaving,
I kind of
and
gave a little fist pump.
yeah, and Kate's like, "Oh, what do I tell all these people that you've inspired? All these people that see you as a leader. What do I tell them when I tell them the leader's gone?" And he just sort of pauses and goes, "I'll be back." And I'm like, "I'll be honest. You set it up perfectly. It doesn't feel too forced. It felt just right. It
Oh,
worked."
it's good.
Um,
Bravo.
and I like that he rides on a bike because that kind of harkens back to his original character. I do think I'm using the exact Guns N' Roses song was maybe just a touch on the nose. Just a touch on the nose. I can't get the main goddamn theme, but I get that Guns N' Roses song. Thanks, movie. Honestly, for the most part, once it gets to the factory / lab / prison, whatever this big building is, and I hate that it's got keypads, and there's one big thing I hate in the middle of all this, but I mostly like a lot of what this last half hour is. Because it turns into more of a Terminator movie in the sense that there's a lot of running from a Terminator, there's a lot of ducking and diving, dark corridors. It feels a bit more like the techno horror movie that I kind of want.
There is a plot twist that happens that I kind of hate.
Yes.
But as soon as the Terminator shows up, I'm like, I love this film.
You don't love this
From
film.
this point on, this movie that you are giving me, I love it. He is so menacing and terrifying. He has,
But imagine
you see him and you see young Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it looks great. I know you said you had a little bit of problem with the face or whatever. I did.
The first time you see the face, it does look a little bit off. And here's the thing: it's not that
He's got like this scowl that I just is.
It's not that it doesn't look real. It's that it doesn't look exactly like Arnold. That's why it's a little bit off and looking like him. Not that it doesn't look. It's not that it looks fake. It's that it looks just slightly off from being Arnold. The rest of the scene, though, well, he's still got his face because he doesn't have his face for very long. It looks fine.
Well,
but,
that's expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. But the first moment where it first tilts up his body, the camera goes up his body, all noticeably there's a nice shadow over the mid region, and it gets to his face. It's just a little bit. It's the side of his mouth that just feels a little bit off to me.
I didn't mind. Like, I know what you're saying, but I didn't mind it. Like, it looks like an assembly line Arnold Schwarzenegger is coming off, but it looks real, like you said, so it's okay with me.
Here's what's happening in this scene: it's John Connor versus the original Terminator, right? It's like it's the T1 haircut. He's got the T1 Arnold hair. Okay, this is I want John Connor fighting the first ever, like the first one that steps out the assembly line. That's here in the building where they build these damn things. It's this Terminator, and it's John Connor fighting this exact Terminator.
And you get a moment of like that film that you want to see, that cyberpunk where this terrifying unstoppable force is coming after you, and it's the danger is real, and this racing against the clock, and it's look at what a Terminator sequel could be if you just made this movie. It's kind of like what Rogue One does with the Darth Vader scene at the end. You're just like, wow, that was incredible, like 2 minutes. Like, can I get a movie of that, please?
Yeah, this is the thing. It's not that I need the Terminator the whole time. He can just show up here in this final act. Like, this could feel special. The problem is that the rest of the film doesn't earn this. The rest of the film does not have an engaging story.
No, but when you get it, it's like, oh, what a sweet relief, you know?
But it doesn't build up to it. It doesn't have like this momentum. Like, it doesn't. You don't care about John Connor. So even though this is a listen and response because we care about the franchise and we care about the past of the franchise, it doesn't really earn it.
And this scene feels like it belongs in that franchise, and not just because you're seeing Arnold. It feels like a Terminator film.
No, and don't get me wrong, I don't think it's perfect. I think it could be better directed. I don't think McGee's, it's not as good as Cameron. He's not, like, it just isn't. But it's serviceable. It gets. Well,
he has no horror in his movie, and I think he's fine in action. I think his action scenes are actually pretty good, but I like the chase scenes.
McGee's problem is not action though. McGee's problem is characters and performances. He's not good. He doesn't know how to like actually supervise a script to actually make sure the script's good. You know, or he's just bad at picking scripts. And he's not good with like drama. That's what he's bad at.
Yeah, there's a lot that's missing, you know, character-wise from the film. Like I don't mind Marcus, but if they want to do this like whole what makes somebody human and what makes someone a machine, I think they really needed to lean more into that in order for me to like be satisfied with that theme.
They whiff it. They whiff it so hard because it's just not enough. It's just so hollow. It's just not there to really count on. And you know, so much happens to this Terminator. You know, he shoots a melting pot of like molten metal on him, and it melts all the skin off of him. And then he shoots like a liquid nitrogen tank. And I did laugh a little bit that these two things were so close to each other. Like, and I guess it makes sense. I guess the whole point is that if there's like an accidental spill,
hot and cool.
Yeah, is that the cold thing is there to like help with that. But it just made me laugh that okay, it's two extremes: molten metal and then and then liquid nitrogen, and he like, you know, completely freezes over and he's like got his hand out and it's like, okay, that's a neat little touch. And he's like sort of like starting to like break down and shatter, like, and get free as like, you know, John's doing his thing and he's setting up the bombs. It's the Terminator fuel cells.
He also has the like molten melty hand, and he gives him that John Connor scar that we see in the old films in the future.
He gives him the actual scar.
How he gets his scar, okay.
Yeah, which is okay. Like that's one of those prequely things that annoys me. I hate when prequels do this. And even though it's set in the future, it is a prequel. It's a prequel to the story we know.
Yeah.
The future war, even though it's in the future, is a prequel to Terminator 1 and 2. It just is. And one of the things that I hate about prequels is when they try to make big deals out of like little details that didn't really matter before.
I mean,
that's what's okay.
It's true.
That's what's okay.
The scar doesn't really matter, but it's a big gash in his face.
Oh yeah.
When you see John Connor, you're like, oh, I wonder how he got that scar. And it makes sense that he would get it from a Terminator because he's part of that war.
It's from an Arnold Terminator, and that makes it kind of special, right? Don't get me wrong. I think this one's okay, but it's one of the things that I have a problem with prequels in general is that they often fall victim to just doing nothing but this. The Star Wars prequels are absolute garbage for this.
This is, I mean, I don't hate the prequels, but with the exception of the third one, I really, really hate Revenge of the Sith, because that's all that movie is. It's just, oh, here's how we connect point A to point B, but it doesn't actually make sense, like, because it doesn't follow its own rules of its universe, like, and it just makes me more frustrated.
Yeah, no, I like Better Call Saul is like the one good example I can give you is a prequel that is like a fantastic and might even end up surpassing the original thing. But even that fell victim to it once. There was one scene in season 4 of Better Call Saul that did the wink wink, here's that thing from, you know, from Breaking Bad, how he gets the thing. There was one moment, and the scene is not that bad, but it stuck out. And when me and Cara reviewed it, it was like, this is the only scene I've disliked in this entire, like, in 4 seasons of this show, it's the only one scene that has given me that prequel feeling. Because that show is exceptional otherwise. Better Call Saul is fantastic. If you don't watch Better Call Saul...
Yeah, I've heard great things.
You should watch. I'm not talking to you. I mean, you should too, but like I'm talking to the people.
I never finished Breaking Bad, so yeah, I'm not going to watch it. And Breaking Bad was a great show. I liked all the seasons that I watched of it. I'm just not a TV person. You know, if it's not Star Trek, I don't really care. I can only invest in one franchise.
Okay. Yeah, this Terminator stuff's pretty good. You know, John Connor running away from it, doing all this stuff. Eventually, he does get stabbed, and Marcus has to come in and kill the Terminator. Which, I mean, even just this whole movie, we've been saying they keep making John Connor look weak, and the movie focuses on Marcus instead of him. Marcus literally comes in and saves his ass. He kills the Terminator on his own by ripping his head off. Might I add? So we have to go back to Marcus's side of this, and this is the part that sucks. This is the part that I hate, and it's the part where, like, as much as Marcus isn't too bad for most of the movie, because this is where his plot's always going to go, I can't help but kind of just already have that distaste in my mouth for the whole thing. Because what did I say in the spoiler-free section? What did I say? Skynet should not have a voice. It should not have a face. We should never hear Skynet talk, because Skynet doesn't need to goddamn talk. It's omnipotent as Skynet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, Helena Bonham Carter's face comes up on the screen and starts talking to him as if it's Skynet. And sure, it says that, okay, it took this face because it's something he recognizes, but that's just a cop-out. Like, piss off. Skynet should never speak. It should never be characterized in any way. One of the cool things about Skynet is it doesn't need to do that. It doesn't give a shit about talking. It doesn't need to talk. It doesn't care about talking or gloating.
It makes it look weaker.
It does. And Terminator Genesis...
You make it human, and I think it can be like defeated like a human. I don't like that.
And I'm not saying that I have a problem with other like AI stories that have like a persona or an embodiment. Like that can work. You know, there's games and movies that have done this, and it's fine.
Yeah, but I mean,
in their own thing.
But then they always have that thing that makes them more than human. That reminds you of it. You know, like HAL 9000 is completely without empathy, or you know, he's focused on just his one directive.
But Skynet can have that.
Scary.
No, but Skynet could have that too, and I don't care. I don't want it. I don't want Skynet to even have that. Like the beautiful thing about Skynet is that it's completely devoid of anything remotely human. No face, no voice, no personality, no nothing. It doesn't
Not
need
anymore.
any of those things, right? And yeah, HAL 9000 is great, but it's HAL 9000. It's its own thing. It can be over there doing its own thing. The creepy like talking head from like or talking voice from like the System Shock games or whatever, like anything that's got like a creepy AI, like it can have a voice, it can have a face, it can do what it wants. It's its own thing. But what I love about Skynet is that it's not those things, and it isn't those things in any of the canonical movies, as far as I'm concerned. And this is something that Genesis does even worse. Genesis like gives them like a body. Like Genesis, there's like a Skynet walking around, and I hate it. Just you wait. If you think I'm passionate on this one, just you wait until I'm seething on that one.
And I'm gonna withhold my opinion. I did see it in theaters, but I don't remember my reaction being like horrible towards it, but I'm sure that it will be now that I've watched all the films back to back.
Well, you know how I was complaining about the prequel thing and like, you know, like, oh, wink wink, this is where this and that thing came from. It doesn't quite have that because it's not exactly a prequel, but all Genesis says is like, remember that moment from T1 or T2? We're going to do it again right here. We're going to do this moment. We're going to do that moment.
Yeah.
We can't even spell the title
Arnold's
correctly.
The best part.
Of course
I like seeing Arnold. I just love Arnie so much. He's the greatest human.
Brace yourself for Terminator Genesis, because yeah, it's Batman v Superman bad. Might even be Suicide Squad bad.
Oh, I don't know about that.
We're gonna talk about it.
That's gonna take some convincing.
We're going to talk about it. It might not be as bad editing as Suicide Squad, but I think the script makes up for it. The script in Genesis makes it as bad as Suicide Squad. Anyway, so yeah, Marcus comes and saves him, and you know, he talks to Skynet for a bit, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you know, you're the ultimate infiltration unit. You can get close because you're actually human with feelings and emotions, and yada yada yada." Again, I feel like this is something they should try after trying with like a Terminator, like the T-800. Because it feels like it's more advanced. It feels like you try it with the T-800. Because remember, in Terminator 1, Kyle says that they had these ones with rubber skin. Which, by the way, where are those in this movie? Like, I wanted to see those. Those sound creepy as shit. Where are these rubber skin Terminators?
Yeah, right. Just like mannequins walking around.
Oh, God.
That could murder you.
Right, I want to see those damn things. Right, and the idea that didn't work, so it made the flesh more lifelike. It's okay, we can make the body look real. And that's the new version. But something doesn't still quite work. Because it doesn't act human enough. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have emotion. It can't quite come across as human in the personality. So this is logically the next step, is actually give it a memory, give it a personality, give it like the memories of a real person. This should be later in the timeline, not here, but I mean, maybe that's nitpicky, but it bugs me.
It bugs me that the whole reason Marx's storyline exists is just because it was always supposed to be that he was supposed to bring both Kyle Reese and John Connor to Skynet.
Yeah.
When everything seems so coincidental, and that any moment, like he just happened to run into Kyle Reese. He was never always supposed to find him.
This is the same problem with every like master plan that a villain has in movies, where you start actually.
I had the same problem in what's that movie that I hated that we watched?
Captive State?
Yes. because that has a similar ending. Like, oh, this was all part of the plan. We're like, no,
Yeah.
your plan is terrible. Like, yeah, it all worked out, but everything was based on random events. It doesn't, it's a horrible plan,
Yeah,
you know?
this is something that's not unique to this movie or even that movie. This is something that happens a lot with
Yeah, and
villains.
it's never
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, it never is. No, it's
It's
terrible
such a cheap,
every time.
it's such a cheap writing. I don't like it. Like, I don't accept it anytime it's in a film.
Yeah, I hate it. No, I agree. I completely agree. Um, so afterwards, we find out that John Connor is going to die. His heart's given out because he got stabbed through it. The movie ends with Marcus saying, "He can have my heart. I'll give him my heart." And he's basically, giving himself over and letting himself die. And he's like, "This is my second chance to be a good person, so I'm going to take it." Here's the problem with this scene: is that this movie has not devoted enough time to John Connor and made us care about John Connor in this movie, that this doesn't feel right. Like, he's not earned us caring about him enough that we think it's okay for this other person to be like, "Oh, just take my heart." We don't care about John Connor enough to be okay with this decision.
The only way this would work for me is if Marcus knew how important John Connor was for humanity, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
He's just some guy. Like, he assumes he's important
And that's
and that he'll be important, but he doesn't know. Like, if he really is choosing humanity over the machine side of him
yeah.
and wants to save John Connor to save humanity, then he should know that John Connor is the reason that humanity survives this war. But he doesn't. He's just like,
but that's
hey,
not,
guy, that was kind of nice to me after we fought for a little while. Here's my heart. And now I'm dead.
you could actually make it work without him knowing completely. Like, see, as much as I hate him talking to Skynet, maybe he could do it just looking through the computer, because we see him looking through the system at one point. But you could sort of sell it to me that it's not so much that he knows how important John Connor is in terms of he knows what he's going to do, but it's the idea that Skynet's scared of him enough. Like, if not, they don't do this in the movie, but let's say Skynet really made it clear that it's scared of John Connor surviving.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they do that a little bit, but
like, you could make it work that way.
yeah.
But like,
Yeah, you're right.
it's but they don't earn anything in this, and the emotion at the end is not earned with John Connor because he's not been the main character. We don't care about him enough to actually care that he's
which is odd because we've had a whole franchise of films that says we should care about him.
But the weird thing is, though, is that the movie, like, obviously the heart of the movies 1 and 2 was Sarah Connor, like that, and that was that's the thing that the movies are really about. It's about heart, and it's about like, and obviously the second one is kind of equal with Heart and the Terminator, but they're both two sides of the same humanity coin.
Mm-hmm.
Terminator,
yeah, it's still Sarah Connor's story.
Terminator Salvation or any future war movie was always going to have to deal with the fact that, okay, it's not Sarah Connor's story anymore. This is John Connor's story. And this movie isn't John Connor's story. It just doesn't do that.
Yeah.
This is...
I mean, the third one was, and they totally, shit the bed on that one also.
Yeah.
Like, they really just whiffed. It was awful.
They just don't know how to... This is the thing. I've seen arguments after 3 and Salvation that, oh, you can't just do it without Sarah Connor. And I love Sarah Connor. Sarah Connor is the focus of that first movie. She's like half the focus of the second movie. But I don't believe that for a second, that you can't do a good Terminator story about John Connor. You absolutely can. You just have to actually write a compelling character, you idiots.
I don't know. Maybe you... Yeah, well, they definitely have not done that for...
No, they haven't. Like, but there's no reason. There's no reason why you can't. He's not that complicated a character.
Even when he's a teenager, like he's not the John Connor that we hear about. So,
but listen, just think about the possibilities
here.
They
get away with it, but it's still he's still not that. We haven't seen this John Connor that we've been told exists in the future.
But it wouldn't be that hard though. Think of how interesting like this character actually is. He grows up knowing he's supposed to be this thing, and he has to deal with that. He has to meet his father, who's younger than him, and make the choice to send him back in time. There's so many interesting like drama like ideas to explore with John Connor, and you can.
How do you make him how do you make this movie where he doesn't come off as John Rambo?
The problem is that in this movie, he does not have an arc. He does not make a choice to be that John Connor. All you have to do to make that John Connor is have a journey where he's not that and chooses to become that. It chooses to accept the responsibility, and he never does. The problem in this movie...
Fine. But I don't think we will ever get a movie where we see him being as badass as his mother.
In this film, there's no decision by him at any point. He is just already what he is, and what that is kind of dull and not really the leader yet, but he's also not like he needs to be reluctant. He needs to be someone who is scared of his responsibilities, who doubts himself and thinks that he's not this leader. He needs to think
we see that.
That's ridiculous. And then he needs to like go through a journey where even if he doesn't really believe it, he sees that other people need to believe in someone. He makes the choice, right? He basically, this is a weird thing, but it's basically Superman. He has to make the choice to give other people hope. And because of that, he has to stand up and be this character. He's essentially playing a role of himself. It's not that this savior John Connor is really the John Connor that exists. It's the idea of John Connor, and he knows he has to be that for people. Like, you can write this. You can make John Connor compelling, and this movie doesn't do it.
Yeah, okay, maybe you can do that. Maybe you can make him the symbol. You can do the Luke Skywalker at the end of The Last Jedi, which I know you hate that reference, but because you don't like the Star Wars movies, but I think that's a good example of somebody living up to their myth, because he just basically becomes a myth, and therefore he can never disappoint people because he's a myth. Now he's part of stories and
but
legends.
Here's the difference.
He will always be holier than thou.
But here's the difference with that, and why I think that doesn't work in the same way, is because Luke Skywalker, we already saw him become the hero. We already saw him. Like, the idea of his myth is something we already saw happen and, like, people cared about. For, you know, whether that's right or wrong, whether, like, you'd agree with what Last Jedi did or not. The thing with John Connor is, though, is that it would work on a meta level. Because John Connor, to us as the viewer, to the audience, has been a myth. Because we've only heard about this great John Connor, this great leader in the future who saves humanity. You know, we hear what Kyle thinks of him. We don't actually get to meet him yet. So the idea that he's struggling with this image of him, that people have of him, it would be this meta thing where it's like this idea of the character trying to live up to what the audience expects of him. And the idea that, no, he can't really ever be that, and he has to accept that and just try anyway. And he becomes it, not because he actually is it, but just because just by doing the things he needs to do, he kind of becomes it without realizing it. That, you know, the story's there. And I think anyone who just writes it off and says you can't do a good Terminator movie without Sarah Connor, it's like, no, I know why you're saying that. I know that she's great, but here's why she's great. She's great because James Cameron wrote a movie about Sarah Connor. He gave her a story. He gave her an arc. All that John Connor needs to actually function as an arc is a story that builds him up, has him learn something, and become something. And this movie does nothing with him.
He needs James Cameron.
It needs James Cameron, or it needs someone who is a real, like, writer. He's a good writer. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I'm good enough to actually write this story. I'm saying that conceptually, I can see what the building blocks of a good John Connor Terminator story is, and this movie doesn't even try to do any of it.
Yeah. John Connor is the worst part of this film because he's so disappointing as a character, in more than one way, and we've already discussed. I think that's the biggest problem of the film. It's just he's just a soldier.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time yelling.
I know.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh dear. And it's not as bad as Terminator 3. It's not. It's just mediocre, but here's the thing. Terminator 1 and 2 are goddamn masterpieces. They are the best of what they can be. And I think there is potential for a good future war movie, or even a future war trilogy. But now everyone's too scared to try it because this movie didn't do that well, and it's not, you know, both commercially and as its quality as a film. And I think, you know, so they go back to what Terminator, and I don't necessarily mind going back to the time travel stuff. Like, that's fine. That's what Terminator is to a point. But
do we know the plot or the premise of Dark Fate?
There's speculation. Would you like to hear my speculation? Which, if it's right, is a spoiler, but it's just speculation, so I don't know if I'm right.
Yes. I mean, speculations are not spoilers.
Okay, so Judgment Day has not happened yet. It's 2019. And because Judgment Day never happened in the time frame it was supposed to, not even remotely, John Connor is never going to be the savior now because he's already old. And I think them casting Edward Furlong and announcing it, and he's not in any of the trailers, he doesn't seem to have a big role, I think it's because he dies. I think it's because he dies early on. And he dies to prove to us...
I mean, he hasn't been working in a long time.
Well, yeah, well, that's my point, though, is that if he was going to be a big role, you wouldn't cast him. You'd cast an actual actor. But...
And isn't he kind of like frumpy?
Sure. Well, yeah, but like, you're missing the point of what I'm saying. The point of what I'm saying is that he's got a small role.
I'm saying you're right, because if they're casting him, it's because they don't need him to look like a hero.
Yeah, he's got a small role because he's going to be killed, and the reason why he's going to be killed is to prove that the future has changed, that what we knew, the future about John Connor saving everyone, isn't true, and that's why there's a new woman who needs to be protected with a kid, and that's why in the trailer Sarah Connor says, I used to be her, because I used to be the one who needed to have her kid be saved. I think that's what the premise is for me, so I think it's why we have this new fancy Terminator that can duplicate. What is Mackenzie Davis character who's a Terminator but also kind of human? Which for some reason, why is that a thing again? Why is
she looks like Marcus, right?
Yeah, she looks like it's going to be a similar thing to Marcus, which is like, it feels weird that they're doing that again. Like, why are they obsessed with like trying this? I guess I don't know. It's weird to me.
I don't know. They got old Arnold back in too, so
yeah.
There's a lot of ideas they're recycling.
And this is one of these things where, like, one of the things I hate about the Halloween sequel, or the remake, is that it completely misses the point of what makes Michael Myers, the Shape, scary, is that he is just this unpersonal killing machine, and there's no reason for him to be what he is, and they try to add all this sympathetic garbage to make you understand why he grew up the way he did, blah, blah, blah. It's terrible. And I don't think I should do this to the same extent, but I do think this obsession with, like, making a human Terminator hybrid is kind of trying to add humanity to it, when I'm like, no, what made the Terminator 2 so special about Arnold like gaining feelings is that no, he is just a machine, and it's the story of like, no, a machine can learn this, a machine can become more human, which I guess kind of ties into my whole thing about Skynet not having a voice and stuff. Is that no, I want it to be less human. I want that to be the point, is that it's less human. But I mean, I'm not judging the movie before I see it. Like I'm fine with the idea in general. It's weird to me they're doing it again. Like
I like Mackenzie Davis a lot.
Yeah, me too. No, I liked her in San Junipero, my favorite episode of Black Mirror, and
I really like. I'll even say, Blade Runner 2049, and I am not a Blade Runner fan at all.
I mean, I like 2049. There was some parts of it that were underwhelming to me, and I want a Jared Leto cut where he's cut out the movie, like all his scenes are just gone. Because it's
Jared Leto cut sounds like you just want a cut of Jared Leto.
Okay, I want the
just the scenes of Jared Leto.
I want the anti-Jared Leto cut. Okay, I'll say it that way. Because like the movie's 3 hours long, we could do with like cutting down a bit, and his 2 or 3 scenes are easily the 2 or 3 worst scenes in the movie that add nothing. So
yeah,
get rid of them all.
I'm neutral towards it.
Get rid of them all.
I think it's just your disdain of Jared Leto that makes you not like it.
No, because he's not the real. I don't want to debate.
We're gonna watch that movie.
Yeah,
eventually.
This is a discussion for the Blade Runner 2049 episode with what I was about to fire into. And I've ranted enough about.
Probably watched before Dune, huh?
Would you like to do the? I mean, we have to do the first Blade Runner though as well.
Whatever, it's one film.
Fine.
I'm sure people expect us to do the original Blade Runner on a science fiction movie podcast.
All right. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of conceptual things about Terminator that I really like, with stuff that I love about the first two. Not even a plot set, just spiritual things that this movie kind of betrays in a lot of little ways. Not in a big way, just in a lot of little ways. Although the big one is Skynet having a face and a voice. And obviously we don't care about John Connor because like they've not actually give him a story. Yeah. I mean, I guess we're kind of done going through the movie, but yeah. I've made my case.
Yeah. So do you like it?
Yeah, it's meh. Like that, but there is moments like some of the Terminator stuff at the end when John Connor's like fighting the Terminator and running away from it. I like. They intentionally.
It's hard not to get into that scene.
Yeah, and they intentionally do the thing that looks like in Terminator 2 when Sarah puts John in the little elevator in the steel mill. They do the same moment here where he puts Keanu Reese in the little elevator and he's going up, and he's like, "Who are you?" As he's going up, so the shot's looking down at him. And he's like, "John Connor," and I'm like, like that's a fine moment. There's nothing wrong with that. And I just wish that everything before these scenes were good, and that the Skynet stuff wasn't there. Because there's a moment where when when John or Marcus is sneaking in to the base. There's a moment where they just get in the door and then this T-600 like walks past and looks around and then keeps walking. And I'm like, yeah, this is the feeling I want. I want this atmosphere. I want this atmosphere of like, yeah, these dangerous Terminators are around and you're screwed at any moment. That's what I want. I love Michael Ironside, but he's miscast in this movie.
Yeah, he belongs in a B film.
He's great in
I
B
love him
movies.
too, but he's got
Yeah,
the face and the voice, and he's typecast as
yeah. No,
like the B movie macho military guy,
hey, one
you
one
know?
day we'll do Turbo Kid, and we'll talk about a good Michael Ironside.
One day we're gonna do Starship Troopers, and we're gonna talk about a great Michael Ironside.
Starship Troopers. That was right at the time when Denise Richards was the hottest thing in Hollywood, and
Hmm.
was very exciting.
Co-ed showers. That's
Yeah,
all everybody ever remembered from that film.
yeah, yeah. That said, the other girl, the other actress in it, who I actually ended up
The
knowing.
curly-haired one.
Yeah, she's actually in a lot more stuff that I've seen since. Dinah Meyer, her name is.
Yeah, she's great.
Um, she's actually in a movie we did for Screams called The Evil Within, which was this movie that this eccentric billionaire made on his own, and it's batshit. He died before he finished editing it. I recommend checking that review out, the Screams After Midnight episode. But she's in that. It's kind of proof that he had the money to hire real actors. It's not like he had like his friends acting in it. But it's
Cool.
batshit insane. It's a unique film. It's one of those things you watch like The Room, where it's like so unique because of like how it was made. Like it's never going to be
Hmm.
like matched in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, Salvation is a mediocre movie with some nice moments and ideas, but ultimately kind of misses the point of what the movie's supposed to be trying to do, um,
Hmm.
and feels like a misfire because of that. That's how I feel about it. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I've been yelling at you a lot. I've been yelling over at you a lot this episode, and I apologize for it because I'm really passionate, and it
I know.
and
I don't take any of it personally,
sometimes you say things that
unless you call me old.
I guess will work top about this franchise. I really do.
I
So,
know.
but hey,
You gonna go for a walk after this?
hopefully it makes for entertaining discussion. Hopefully it makes for an enjoyable listen. I hope so. Anyway, uh, but anyway, I guess we're at the point now where we're going to rate the movie.
Yeah, I think so.
We're going to rate it. So Tara, what are you rating Terminator Salvation?
Uh, okay. Well, yeah, you kind of gave a really great summary at the end there. I will add that I don't hate watching the movie. I think it's just this anomaly of a film in a franchise that sticks out like a sore thumb because it's just the tone is so different from the rest of the films. Like even the third movie, yeah, it was like a weird comedy that was almost making fun of itself in the franchise because it couldn't live up to the first two, but it still sort of looked like it belonged in that universe. And this one does not at all. So it's just this bizarre little what if story of a Terminator franchise, which it kind of makes it worth watching, I think. I love the stuff at the end where it's just like this hint of what the film could have been if it chose to make it an actual Terminator story. And I do hate all the stuff with John Connor. He's the worst part of the film because he's so disappointing. He is miscast and misdirected, and that does bring it down quite a bit. But overall, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay, okay. Well, I actually want to pick up something you said there. You said that Terminator 2 looks like more like it belongs in the franchise than Salvation does. And it's funny, I think it's kind of 50-50. I think there's moments in Salvation that looks like it's more of a Terminator movie than Terminator 3 ever was. You know, there's like the stuff where the T-600s are like sort of like skulking around and looking for people. That kind of
Hmm.
almost horror moments feels more like a Terminator movie to me than 3 ever did. But I get what you're saying because it's got this grey look to it and it's all this war movie bollocks and yeah. Um. So anyway, it's tough for me to rate this. It is because it's not as bad as 3. There are some things in it I like. I hate the use of music, the lack of the main theme. I hate Skynet having a face and a voice is like one of the most like instant fu moments in a movie to me. That this is, you know how like we always joke about like nerds getting angry at shit, and I always bring up Batman v Superman as me getting angry, and like Star Wars nerds, you know, there's all the talks of the moments they hate in the prequels or even
Hmm.
the new movies, like some of the idiots who like get really misogynist or whatever about Last Jedi and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
and they
bizarre.
yell about like this moment makes them, hate it, and oh, I hate this moment, it's so stupid. Yeah, I hate to compare myself to these people, but Skynet having a face and a voice is kind of like that moment for me. I mean, I don't react the way they do, but I'm like, inside I'm seething. I'm like, what are you doing, movie?
No, I mean, you're right to be mad about it though, because it's like you just want to tell the writers to be like, no, watch the movies again because you missed it. You missed the point.
Yeah. I will say this
Do it
though.
again.
I will say this. McG did make The Babysitter, and I greatly enjoyed that fun little movie. So make more like that, McG. Make your fun little horror comedy B movies, because you're actually better at that. I had fun with that. That was a delightful little film. But I'm going to give this a straight 5 out of 10. I think I can't go super low because it's not a complete mess, but it does a lot of things to piss me off. It kind of misses the point. The aesthetic being what they are is kind of, annoying, and like, why? There's a lot of points in this movie where I just kept going, why? Why this? Why that? Why was this choice made? Why? Why?
I think watching the film back to back with the rest of the franchise it makes it worse.
Sure.
But then watching it just as a standalone film, because it is so standalone, just tonally,
Tonally, yeah. It does reference them a lot, though. There's definitely a lot of franchise kind of connections and stuff.
Yeah, but you can kind of watch a movie like a Terminator movie on its own. Like you know who John Connor is, you know who Sarah Connor is, you know who the Terminator is, and that's enough.
Oh, sure, but like it's impossible not to like because you're a fan of the other movies. It's impossible not to recognize the song playing, the lines, the "I'll be back," all the little things they do to reference the previous movies. It's impossible not to like notice them when you watch it.
I mean, I don't think I noticed it when I watched it in the theater because they weren't. I mean, I watched the first two films a lot when I was a kid, but when the Salvation came out, like it had been a while since I had watched those films, and I didn't pick up on the song when I watched it and stuff like that. Maybe like the "Come with me if you want to live" and "I'll be back" line I picked up on, but it's not necessary for the movie to work.
Oh, sure. I certainly did though when I saw it the first time, and and the references. Honestly, most of the references are okay.
They're pretty subtle, I think.
I think the "I'll be back" is a big moment, and I think the only reason it doesn't work is because they've not built up the character enough. Because I want to care. I want to care about John Connor going on a rogue mission to save Kyle Reese. I want to care about that. This movie should be building up to him finding out about Kyle and being like, shit, I need to save him. And that should be the big third act of the movie. And it kind of is in a weird way, but not in the way that it makes it work. So, Anyway. So that is Terminator Salvation. Our 2-hour epic on Terminator Salvation is complete.
I think all of these have been over 2 hours. All the Terminator ones.
No. One was like an hour 40 something, and that had a Mystery Science Theater section, so technically it was only about 90 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Terminator 2, I think, was a little bit longer, and then 3 was like 2 hours 10, and this has been, well, we're hitting 2 hours just now, so by the time we outro, I mean, we'll see what we're at, but
okay.
I guess, yeah, Terminator Genesis, I would just book it. That's going to be 2 hours long. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be 2 hours long. There is no way.
Calendars.
There's no way in hell that it's going to be shorter than this.
What is that? 3 weeks from now?
I think
2 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. 3 weeks sounds right. So there you go. That's Terminator Salvation.
I'm still rooting for Dark Fate. I'm rooting for you.
I hope so. I
want something good.
I want us to turn. Do you know what the sad part is though? Is that Dark Fate could be like a 6 out of 10 and still be the best sequel since 2. That is so depressing. The bar's not that high.
I mean, the first 2 films are great, and they have Sarah Connor as the centerpiece. So we know she's back.
Yes, but that's just one more thing they can ruin.
It is, yeah.
So no, let us know what you think of Terminator Salvation. Do you think I've been far too harsh? Maybe I have been. I don't know. But I think ultimately, just to sum up, it's kind of hollow. It doesn't really earn its big character moments, and as a result, it feels hollow. So, Terminator Salvation, everyone. I have just killed my voice. So, You can, of course, let us know what you think of the movie in the comments. You can like and you can subscribe. We mentioned Patreon early on, of course, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Go over there if you want to support us. You can also support us by rating the podcast on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts being the most common one. Give us 5 stars, helps more people find us. It recommends us out a lot more often, so go do that. Otherwise, Tara, why don't you promote some other stuff that we do?
Oh, why? If you enjoy science fiction, Peter and I are going through the entirety of the original series of The Twilight Zone.
And possibly...
So you can check out our reviews on that.
Hey, possibly more than the original when we get there. But we'll make that choice when we finish the original.
Possibly more.
Yeah.
Maybe even other shows.
Yeah, maybe we'll shift gear. Maybe instead of go straight on to like the 80s Twilight Zone, we'll do like the Outer Limits next. You know, we'll shake it up a little bit.
Ooh.
Go another one.
I think the Outer Limits was originally like a pretty old show too, but I only watched the one in the 90s.
Okay.
And that one taught me a lot about the human body. It was a good show. It was on at like HBO.
Okay.
It'd be fun to go back to.
Yeah, maybe. Hey, I watched Carrie today. That was telling me a lot about the human body.
It's got my girl in it.
Yeah, Nancy Allen. And hey, let's talk about Nancy Allen. We have to do RoboCop soon.
I know. I love RoboCop.
Neil Blomkamp.
I mean, I watched it last week.
Neil Blomkamp
I love it.
Dropped out the sequel though, so the sequel's not like it may still happen, but not with Neil Blomkamp. He dropped out. So depressing.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, for my money, he's only made one good movie, and granted, it's great.
Yeah, District 9 is fantastic.
The other movies he's made are just garbage. I know you like them, but
hey, do you know what they all are? They're all science fiction.
Unwatchable.
They're all science fiction, which means they're all going to happen.
Ugh.
Next time Blomkamp's
it's not going to happen soon because he's not making a movie anytime soon.
Next time he's got a movie coming out, we're doing the Blomkamp philography. Just you wait.
Ugh. I'm looking forward to the first one.
Oh dear. So yeah, check out Twilight Zone reviews. You can also check out the horror movie podcast that I do with Tim called Screams After Midnight. In fact, when is this going up? Because it'll probably be October by now, because how far we record these in advance. So this is there. Yeah. So during October 3rd, 2019, episode of Screams After Midnight every single day. Every single day. Just you wait, guys. It's coming. Plus a special live stream called Streams After Midnight.
Whoa.
On the 20... Let me just double check the date. I don't want to say the wrong one. On the 21st of October. Monday the 21st of October.
Clear your calendars.
Me and Tim together live. We'll do some Q&A. We'll watch a movie with you guys. We're going to do Pieces, the film, so you don't have it. You can check it out. Get a hold of a copy of it. And... you could get that on Monday the 21st of October at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern, 2 AM UK. That's the time zones.
Whoa.
Look forward to it, guys. It's coming. So, that's all my plugging for the day. So thank you very much once again for joining us on this rant-fueled journey through Terminator Salvation. We will see you guys next time for The Invisible Man, which was the vote winner for the month, so we're going to do that next week. However,
thank you, voters.
Yes. I was going to promote the new movie that's coming out, but this will actually come out after that goes up, so there's no point. Ad Astra got reviewed, so you can go check out that. That was like an extra episode that was off schedule that we just threw up right away. That wasn't out earlier like that on Patreon, because it was new, it was brand new, it was a new release, so that'll happen occasionally.
We haven't done one of those yet, so cool.
Yeah. Although technically we've done Ad Astra.
Oh.
Yeah. Technically...
we're in a weird prequel sequel.
Yeah. I mean, technically next month we should do Gemini Man, but I really don't want to see it at theaters.
Those trailers are not good.
I mean, I'll do it when it's on a whole video and it's cheaper.
You made a person from a person. Like, yeah, that's how babies are born.
Yeah. Yes.
That line doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Hey, that was Picard's argument in the Measure of a Man. They said Data was made by a human being, and he's like, so are other humans. Anyway, that has been Terminator Salvation. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching sci-fi movies, guys, and we will see you next time and that's not my outro on this. Computer, add salsa.
Yum, yum.